Tuesday, July 23rd, 2024, on the following application at the times listed or as soon thereafter as they may be reached. At such time, all interested parties will be given an opportunity to be heard. Application number 429-24, Nina Gallo. Is anybody here on the application of Nina Gallo? Okay, come on up to the podium. Permission to leave shed having rear yard of 2 feet and side yard of 2.7 feet instead of required 4 feet each. Residence A District, north side of Bethesda Lane, 240.42 feet west of Broadway Avenue, Sayville. I'm glad you're here. We thought that the applicants had trouble sending somebody.
Yep, we're here.
Good.
Could you just give us your name and address, please? For the
Nina Gallo, 23 Bethesda Lane, Sayville.
Just to you on the shed?
Say it again.
Just to you on the shed?
Just the shed.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
No.
No? Planning, any comments on this? No. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard in this application? Okay, I'll take a motion, please.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Application is granted.
Thank you.
We promised it would be short. Application number 430-24, Valerie Murray and John Haggard. Permission to leave pool patio having side yard of 3.2 feet and pool equipment having side yard of 4.5 feet instead of required 6 feet each. Shed having 14 feet behind the front line of the dwelling instead of required 20 feet. And driveway having side yard of 2.5 feet instead of required 4 feet. Residence B District, 278 cluster, north side of Glen Summer Road, 618.15 feet east of Winwood Lane, Holbrook.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Valerie Murray Haggart. This is my husband, John Haggart. We live at 26 Glen Summer Road in Holbrook, New York.
No.
Anyone else that would like to be heard in this application?
Make a motion to approve the application.
Second, all in favor? Application is granted. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Good job arguing your case.
Great.
Application number 431-24, Anna Langella Irrevocable Trust. Permission to leave above-ground pool having rear yard of 15.5 feet instead of required 18 feet. Patio having side yard of 0.6 feet instead of required 4 feet. 2 sheds having side yard of 0.8 feet instead of required 2 feet each. And driveway on side property line not having required setback of 4 feet. Residence AA District, west side of Roosevelt Avenue, 400 feet south of 7th Street, Bohemia.
Good evening. My name is Anna Langella, and I reside at 1592 Roosevelt Avenue, Bohemia, New York.
And you're here on the pool, got a patio side yard, 2 sheds in the driveway?
I thought I was here for the pool. I'm guessing yes.
Planning, any comments on this? No. Any questions from the board on this?
No.
No? Is there anyone else that would like to be heard in this application? Okay, then I'll take a motion.
Make a motion to approve the application.
Second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Application is granted.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I
You too.
traded for it.
What'd you trade? To be announced? Future.
Future considerations.
Application number 432-24, Gwendolyn Martin and Rosemary Martin. Permission to use dwelling for 2-family, family use only pursuant to Islip Town Code Section 68-419.1. To leave above-ground pool having side yard of 9 feet and rear yard of 8.7 feet instead of required 10 feet each. Cellar entrance having side yard of 10.1 feet instead of required 14 feet. And driveway having side yard of 0.6 feet instead of required 4 feet. Residence B District, north side of Morris Street, 300 feet west of Madison Avenue, Brentwood.
Hello,
Hello.
my name is Gwendolyn Martin. I live at 41 Morris Street, Brentwood, New York, 11717.
And we've got paperwork in the folder here about your mother, Rosemary, being in the house with you.
Yes,
She qualifies based on her age. Is there any questions from the board on this?
No.
Planning, any comments? No. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard in this application? I'll take a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to grant the application.
Yes.
Period of 3 years.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
thank you.
Approved. Thank you.
All right.
Application number 433-24, Vladislav Lashinin. Permission to establish accessory apartment pursuant to Islip Town Code Section 68-602. Residence AAA District, west side of Connecticut Road, 300 feet south of Cross Road, Oakdale.
Yes. How you doing? I live on 18 Connecticut Road, Oakdale.
And your name, please?
Yes. Vladislav Lešić.
Good evening. My name is Melissa Graham. I'm from Long Island Permits.
We reside at 124 Front Street, Suite 205, Massapequa Park, 11762. I'm the agent representing Vlad Vladishin. He's the owner of 198 Connecticut Road in Oakdale. An application was filed for a proposed accessory apartment. My client and his former wife purchased the house in 2020. After their divorce, my client repurchased the house from his ex-wife in 2023. My client is seeking the use of the accessory apartment for his daughter to stay while she attends Stony Brook for the next few years. The proposed accessory apartment will have a total square footage of 770 square feet. My client has a separate application into the building department for a proposed second-story deck that will provide a secondary entrance exit to the accessory apartment if he decides to use a future rental. Mr. Bladishin also plans to expand the driveway to allow 2 cars side by side for off-street parking. My client has spoken to a few of his surrounding neighbors, and no one has any issues to this variance being granted.
Thank you. Any questions from the board on this?
No
Planning,
question.
any comment? Is there anyone else who would like to be heard in this application?
So you said you're going to only park 2 cars side by side? Because the accessory apartment ordinance requires you to have 4 cars parked on.
4 cars.
Okay, so, okay.
Right now, it's like just 1.
Well, right now it's 1 and 2, so it'll be 2 side by side, so you could do 4.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's going to be, as I say, double wide and double deep, right? Because engineering did review the driveway plan and they said it can be modified to comply, right? Okay, so I would recommend then the board grant it subject to engineering's approval of the driveway.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'll take a motion. Subject to engineering's approval? Thank you. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Application is granted.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Application number 434-24, Margaret Ann McNamara. Permission to erect second-story addition, 15.8 by 20.2, leaving rear yard of 19.25 feet instead of required 25 feet. Leave pool patio having rear yard of 0.8 feet and pool equipment having rear yard of 2.83 feet instead of required 6 feet each. Patio having rear yard of 1 foot and shed with roof overhang having side yard of 3.9 feet instead of required 4 feet each. Gazebo having side yard of 1.5 feet instead of required 2 feet, and rear yard landscaping of 30% instead of required 40%. Residence B District, east side of Oak Avenue, 100 feet north of Muncie Road, West Islip.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening. Vincent Lucarelli, 9 Kirkland Drive, Green Lawn, New York, 11740. I'm the architect. Basically proposing a second floor addition for a master bedroom suite. I think that's what triggered the variances. The rear variance is the main one, and there's other variances are just existing conditions that have been in place for years, and they're just looking to legalize all the other things around the pool, the patio, the shed, and everything that's listed on the application.
Planning, do you have any comments?
A lot of this is not really all that problematic. As far as the parcel itself, the house is set very far back. And with the first story addition has like setback out. So the second story addition is pushed up about as far as the go in that.
Any questions from the board? Is there anyone else that would like to be heard in this application? No? Sam, do you want to be heard in this application? Okay, I'm sorry. All right, then I'll take a motion, please.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Application is granted. Thank you.
Thank you.
You sorry for.
You can hear?
You heard.
Said you couldn't.
And you said sorry. It's not your fault.
Well, actually, it kind of is.
That's.
Application number 435-24, Nicholas Citarella and Frank Citarella. Permission to leave second-story deck 9 by 10.5, having rear yard of 9.5 feet instead of required 25 feet. Residence A District, northwest corner of Belmore Street and Leopold Avenue, West Islip.
Nick? Okay. Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Len Crick, Island Wide Permit Services, office at 86 Center Street in Ronkonkoma. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, 577 Belmore Street in West Islip is a typical corner lot in a neighborhood characterized by several corner properties with short rear yards. In our case, there's only about 18 to 20 feet of open space behind the house. Given this limitation, the previous owner built a modest 95 square foot deck off of the kitchen. It might be a second-story deck, but since the house is a high ranch, the deck is only 5.8 feet in height. Any questions?
Do we have any photographs? I'm just wondering, does it permit them to peer into the?
No higher than the entrance.
Any comments on this?
Just to say that it is a very shallow lot that work with a lot of front line rear yard space. It seems to me that the lot would right on the other side could be actually. So it could be reasonable to interpret it as more of a side yard location. The other side yard. At that point, still would need a variance based on. From that perspective, it's a lot less severe. It is difficult, but as far as
Where is the?
deck would be like right about.
And it's almost 6 feet high.
Right.
It's a little under 6 feet high, and a little under 1.
The entrance, I mean, gives you the same
Even
feel.
with the entrance. Those out 9 feet. My only concern is I understand it's the same height as house and the door that exits onto it, but it looks into the side yard. Neighbors here?
Is there anyone else who would like to be heard on this application?
Don't care, what do you care?
Right, I don't care. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I will take a motion then.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Application is great.
Thank you.
Application number 436-24, C&M Premier Properties LLC. Permission to leave detached garage having height of 14.7 feet instead of permitted 14 feet. In-ground pool having side yard of 16 feet instead of required 18 feet. And pool equipment having side yard of 4 feet instead of required 6 feet. Residence AA District, west side of Kenwood Drive, 405.86 feet south of Aaron Drive, Bohemia.
Good evening, Claire Greco, CKG Permit Service, here for the applicant, C&M Properties. It's a property that we purchased as a foreclosure. It's my understanding it's been vacant for the better part of 5 years or so. I just handed up to the board photos taken yesterday. Presently, we have a building permit for renovation, as you can see, and the new survey revealed that the pool was installed by Marlin Pools in '07, 2 feet too close to the side yard, and the ridge height on the garage is 7 inches in excess of what code permits. So we're here seeking a de minimis application approval for those 2 structures. The garage was built by the prior owner. A permit was sought in 2006. And you'll see in the photo that I submitted, there's a garage immediately adjacent on the adjacent parcel that's similar in height, if not a little taller.
Foreclosure.
And I do believe both the pool and the garage had inspections while it was under construction prior to our ownership.
The building next to it that you pointed out is a garage?
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I have some thoughts on this. We used to hold the line at 14. We went to 14.2, 14.4, then 14.5. Where do we stop? what's the point? I mean, we're going to end up at 27.3 and then, no, 27.5. I have to stop somewhere. And we just literally raised the roof to 14.7. Raising the roof. So I'm not in favor, not your fault.
No, understood.
But we just keep inching up.
Understood. We could change grade by 7 inches. I mean, we're talking 7 inches, but I took the photo of the adjacent garage specifically to depict that the adjacent garage is in fact higher, and I'm presuming that must have been before the board.
But is that,
If it's
is that
higher.
garage legal?
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I don't presume it's.
Well, I would hope, but I'm sure your staff member can testify to
Lenny, what do you
the
have?
grants in the area. On the neighboring property to the, what would be the northeast, I suppose.
The code only changed in 2003 on height.
Yeah, I would guess that maybe it was constructed.
In which case, again, I believe the picture demonstrates that it's at least a few inches higher. I mean, you can see by the roof pitch.
But it may not be there lawfully.
I'm sorry?
It may not be there lawfully.
It may well be the case.
Maybe before the code.
Or it may
Lawfully
predate the
before the code
code.
amendment, right.
I think that's unlikely based on the construction of it in looking at it. I wouldn't know. I can certainly do a record search.
I would agree with Mr. Wexler. We can't get out of control with the height. That's not going to happen. You're growing, you're done. Shame.
I mean, if the board prefer, and it's not viewing the 7 inches kindly, we can certainly regrade to eliminate this issue.
If they eliminate this issue, they can regrade, eliminate
We
this
can
issue.
regrade by 7 inches if
I
need
don't
be,
think there's
with
a
just
problem
being
with any
here.
the rest of the application. Yeah, there's no problem with the rest of the application.
I'm sorry? I don't know what the board has previously approved. I know that when the application was sought by Mr. Haggerty, the prior owner in '06, the building department quite emphatically emphasized on the building permit that the height should not exceed 14 feet. And it wasn't until our new survey as part of the building permit renewal process to remedy the house itself that the height was revealed at 7 inches, higher than code permits. Certainly, we could have recontoured at that time and avoided the application here, but seeking to be honest, you can see what we have, and we had to come before the board. If we have to, I mean, it'll end up with a little hump. Sorry. Mhm. Well, 2 feet for the pool is certainly appreciated because that's a more difficult issue to overcome. The pool was also installed slightly larger than had been permitted, which I think in part is contributory to, yeah. So we got 7 inches. I mean, we can recontour if need be. We just sought to bring the application honestly.
Not that I can tell. To speak to the one north of it, I assume it's this accessory building that was CO'd in 2001, which would put it before 14 feet. It seems that it was built before at the time. It's just labeled as accessory building. I have to assume.
Is there anyone else that would like to be heard in this application?
So just to be clear, 7/10 of a foot is the.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to deny that portion of the application that seeks a height of 14.7 feet instead of the permitted 14 feet, but I would move to approve the balance of the application.
Thank you very much. Have a pleasant evening.
Application number 437-24, Fausto Rodriguez and Christian Arcenega. Permission to establish accessory apartment pursuant to Islip Town Code, Section 68-602. Residence AA District, north side of Seacliff Street, 100 feet east of Belmore Avenue, Islip Terrace.
Yeah, good night. My name is Fausto Rodriguez, and my address is 211 Seacliff Street in Islip Terrace, New York, 11752.
And my name is Michaela Rodriguez, and I'm his daughter.
Address.
Very good. Planning, any comments on this?
No.
Any questions to the board on this accessory apartment application? No? Is there anyone else who would like to be heard in this application? Ma'am? Could step aside, let them come up, let her come up and speak.
Good evening. I live at 913 Belmore Avenue.
If you could, and give us your name and address.
Sure, my name is Michael Ann Sepulveda. I live at 913 Belmore Avenue. I live across the street from them. And I want to bring up to the board that it's an issue for me because of parking. They have cars parked in the road. Those cars park on my lawn when they have their tenants come and visit, or even their guests come and visit. I've had to call the police. Code enforcement has had to come and tow a car away that blocked my driveway for 3 hours.
When you say tenant, sounds like you say.
Yes,
Right, but
I believe they have,
I asked, or one asked, right, what you see and time.
this has been going on for a year, where they have anywhere between, I'll say, 4 to 5 cars parked in the street on a daily basis. Last summer, I had to call the police because there was a car that blocked my driveway and I could not get out. The police told me we knocked on neighbors' doors to try to get them to move. No one was home. The police came, they knocked on the doors. They told me they had to call code enforcement.
During this 1 year period, how often? 4 to 5 cars.
Every day. The tenants, I don't know if the tenants park in that driveway. As far as I know, the tenants always park in the street. Their cars are in the driveway, whoever owns the house.
How many?
I would say 4 cars, 3, 4 cars.
About the last year, there are 3 to 4 cars that are in the driveway that you understand be the owners,
Correct,
and then another 4 to 5 parked in the street.
correct,
I asked those
What's that?
7 and 9 cars.
correct. And if I, yes, because they have tenants that live in the back currently.
Are they the same cars as cars you can tell? Or
No, and I'll go into that. Because there is a new tenant that just recently moved in, and I've gone over to them when they have vehicles parked on my driveway, which I have pictures of.
There was an indication that code enforcement has been there, though.
If, I don't have to say anymore. Oh, I'm just saying, they just had a recently new people move in the back. And in their backyard, they go through the gate.
Into the house, or is there a structure that they're living in?
Their tenants or whoever lives in the back, there's 2 entrances to their backyard.
Okay.
So the tenants go in their backyard, and that's where they live. As far as I know, there's at least 3 apartments back there now currently.
what do you base that on?
Based on the cars and me seeing people going in and out of the premises.
I understand the new tenant, but you see some frequency the same people that tenants.
Yes and no, because people come and go like a revolving door here.
Are there people that you'll see for a month or 2?
Yes.
Okay. How many people do you regularly see or you believe that are living there other than the tenants?
In the back, I would say anywhere between 4 or 5, possibly 6 people. No, just basically that they're, and parking on my lawn and running up my lawn where I have to call the police, have cars towed because I'm blocked in for 3 hours.
You did mention that the town code enforcement came. When did they come and tow cars?
That was last summer,
2023.
correct? Because it was physically in front of my driveway, that is in the back.
Have you ever spoken to the young lady and?
I,
Are you? You're right. Right.
I have spoken to the gentleman right here, which was last week, where a truck was parked on my property.
Hang on. Is that the first time?
No,
How many times have you?
one other time, and that was when the cricket games were going on. They had guests over in their yard, and they were parked on my property. It wasn't that gentleman, it was another gentleman that said he was the homeowner. I had to go to the side gate, and I asked them to have their guests take their cars off my lawn, and they did, right away. That was last week, yep, all I had to do was knock on the door. He saw who I was, and he saw the truck right away, and he went to the back, and he spoke to whoever lives back there. Hmm?
Anyone else that would like to be heard?
Absolutely.
We wanted to see it.
So saying that there are 8 to 9 cars is false, and that there are around 3 apartments is also false. And the incident that she's talking about with the car getting towed was when there was a day in the summer last year where there were multiple parties and there was not a lot of parking. So somebody parked in front of her space, a guest, and they were towed, as they should be, because that's in front of her side parking lot.
Do you have or did you have?
No, and I can show you.
How many people last year in the house?
My dad, my brother and his wife, and my little brother, and I go to college and I come back. So me, occasionally for part of the year, 5. There are 4 people. 4 people. Yes.
You're saying that you don't have any understanding.
So our family lives nearby and they visit often. So I think that that's who she's referring to, but they do not live with us and they're not there all the time. Continue.
Right now, there's no one living in
No.
What do we do when we have one person saying, this is what I see? The applicant say, no, you're wrong, but
Do we have code enforcement complaints? Do we have any sort of written history? We've also.
It would only be 2. It would only be 2. Mhm.
Apartment is small. 400.
Yeah, it would only be 2.
Yeah, and if it's like a probationary period, if it works. Yeah, you go. Give me my plastic badge. You don't want to have any comments, do you?
discussing it, the vice chair carries a lot of weight with this.
Should.
That perhaps a shortened period of 1 year would be appropriate for basically a probationary period. So we'll see them in a year and we'll see what has happened.
Yeah, let's take a motion then for that.
Sure. Want me to make a motion?
Just did.
Okay, that's my motion.
Second.
I would second that motion.
All in favor? Aye. Application is granted for a period of 1 year.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Application number 438-24, Hugo Aguilar, Geronimo Monroy, and Eugenia Mazarego. Permission to erect second-story addition, leaving side yard of 13.8 feet instead of required 14 feet, to leave shed having side yard of 1.8 feet instead of required 4 feet, and to establish accessory apartment pursuant to Islip Town Code Section 68-602. Residence A District, north side of Merrick Street, 200 feet east of Belmore Avenue, Islip Terrace.
Hi, my name is Hugo Aguilar. I live 19 Merrick Street, Islip Terrace, 11752.
Good evening, sir. And you just here, let's see, we got the second-story addition?
Second-story addition and the
Okay.
apartment.
No issue with the shed. Second-story addition. Planning, have any comments on any of these? No. No? Okay. Anybody else like to be heard in this application?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Jose Taveras.
Sorry?
Jose Taveras. I'm representing Mr. Aguilar.
Oh, okay.
Well, you did a very good job without.
I know, I see that.
Don't say anything, you made.
All right, but you understand that he said everything that was needed, basically?
We've got,
Yeah, we
we
understand.
understand the application. Huh?
Apartments in order, right?
Yes, the appointment's in order. Anyone else that would like to be heard in this application? Any questions from the board? Planning, you're good. Take a motion.
I'll make the motion that we grant the application. Apartment for free.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Case is granted.
Thank you very much.
Keep my eye on him.
Pergola.
Leave him on the other one. Yes, let's change the word.
Pergola?
And I didn't. Application number 439-24, Felix Saavedra. Permission to leave pergola 23.5 by 31.5, having rear yard of 5.2 feet instead of required 10 feet, an air condenser unit having 2.8 feet behind the front line of the dwelling instead of required 4 feet. Residence A District, north side of Hemlock Drive, 112.5 feet west of Lincoln Boulevard, Bay Shore.
Good evening.
Hello, my name is Felix Saavedra. My wife's Leslie Saavedra. We live in 35 Hemlock Drive, Bay Shore.
So the big problem here is your pergola.
Mhm.
Can you cut that down?
Big pergola.
Yes.
Big pergola.
I'm sorry, I can't hear it. I have problems with it here.
What's in back of it?
Do you have any pictures of
The
this?
house.
The problem is you built it too big.
Yeah, but we have the architect plans and the architect approve everything.
The architect?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Who was the architect?
Was Thomas, Thomas William?
You ought to have the architect fix it.
Why?
Too big.
But they had the reinforcement that the architect asked
But
for.
it violates the code.
Right, you can't design whatever you want.
Yeah, he may be an architect in good standing,
Mhm.
but it violates the code.
When did you build it?
That was a year ago.
What?
A year ago.
A year ago?
Yes.
There you go, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
so
got to be set 10 feet from the
can you not-
property line,
Mhm.
only 5.2.
Yes.
Or move it back.
Oh, doesn't show. Yeah.
Yeah, it's too close.
Yes,
big.
you got to, yeah, take more foot, 5 feet.
Big or too close.
4.8 feet.
4.8 feet.
Mhm.
Okay?
We have to move it.
Okay.
So we're going to deny the pergola, and then you'll have to bring it into compliance. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard in this application?
We'll give you more relaxation. Yes. I see it.
All right, I'll take a motion.
I'll make the motion, Mr. Chairman, we deny the application. The pergola at 5.2 feet required and grant the.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. So the pergola has been denied, but the rest of the application has been granted.
Okay. Right.
Catherine? You? Application number 440-24, James Taddeo and Stephanie Canizaro. Permission to leave two-story addition 6.4 by 20.5 and second-story addition 11 by 20.5, having side yard of 10.02 feet instead of required 14 feet, and floor area ratio of 39% instead of permitted 25%. To leave shed having side yard of 1.3 feet and not having required 20 feet behind the front line of the dwelling, and patio on side property line not having required setback of 4 feet. Residence B District, east side of South Chicot Avenue, 315 feet south of Edmore Lane South, West Islip.
How are you? Michael Arado, representing the homeowner. Captain permit, it's 245 Route 109, Suite D, West Babylon, New York, 11704. So we're here for second story addition, which is 6.4 by 20.5 and 11 by 20.5. The additions are above the garage and go over the back of the house. For what we can find on GIS, the house had an addition off the back sometime in the 70s, which appears that's the line that the prior owners followed when they did this extension. Current side yard setback doesn't meet the required 14-foot yard setback. It obviously has 10.2. The total combined side yard setback of 44.6, where 28 is required. The alterations to the house were made sometime between 2011 and 2013. And again, they were made by the prior owners. So new owners walked into this house. They had no idea that these structures were not built, properly without permits. So they were unaware of these structures being illegal.
When did they buy the house?
2020. It's weird. I actually walked in and they had plans on this house. They were stamped, so I think it threw them off. It threw me off for a minute. I was like, oh, and when I finally did the foil and I looked at it, that's
Usually when you go.
no, I know, I get it.
Title report.
They should have picked it up.
Right, there's a C of O, but doesn't mean, you gotta really look at it,
Yeah,
what's
somebody
got
didn't-
permits
didn't
and
do that.
what's got.
But they could have chosen to accept it.
Yeah, sure, right. and They
They
didn't.
could have
show it.
accepted.
No, they did a title report.
Problem is at 39%, it's way too large, way too large.
Yeah, the FAR is gonna be a problem. I don't think the balance of it is all that.
No, I mean, this is West Islip, so we see 32, 33, 39, 32.
And I'm always wrestling for 33, but he doesn't give it to me.
It looks so for the plans that I read from the architect, the FAR that I got, where 25 is allowable. The house was originally built, looks like it was 2261 was the original build on the house, like when it first was built. So it was a little over FAR to begin with, back when it got its CO. So the additions, from what I can tell, bring it to, so yes, the additions was 2261, and then with the garage, it was 2461. Sorry, that was the original. 2261 was original. And then 200 square feet for the garage was 2461. That's what I got from the assessors.
Hasn't been touched since 1950.
Then when you bring in the new additions, that's when you get 29. No, I'm just telling you. Well, the garage was existing. That was 200, and then the house. Like I said, I just went off the assessor's square footage, so that's what was on record from what I could find with the total square footage. Oh, and
Do you
just
have any comments for us on this?
Just to really confirm that most people already know, it's the neighborhood overwhelmingly holds 32%. Over a dozen times, more than that has side yard of 10 feet, total front at 30 miles. But yes, they are. Any way they can pick up at all?
That's unfortunate for your clients when they buy a house and somebody overlooks COs. Nothing we can do. We can't leave 39%. That so far exceeds what we've ever allowed. We'll we can myself, but we can. How do you get there? We have to grant everybody 30.
Also, how's it wind up here? Why are you here?
Oh, the clients just, they had, I guess, violations on the house with this. So they believe town showed up to his house because he had an issue with, like his driveway and stuff. So we started legalizing everything for him. And that's how this came up. So we're just here trying to resolve this and then
Permit?
we'll move on. So what do? You hold decision and then we can come back maybe with another build, or are you just gonna be 32, what'd you say, 32%?
I think we're going to probably vote 32 with the rest of the application. Minimum. Deny it. Grant 35. Anything else we can do?
Okay.
Is there anyone else who would like to be heard in this application? Take a motion on it?
I'll make a motion to deny some of the application, seeking floor area ratio of 39% and grant 22%.
32.
See? My natural inclination.
A negative variance.
Yeah. 32, you see what happened?
Everybody's gonna be living on the lawn.
32%, and grant remainder of the application.
Your second, please.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Come here and you lose. You lose. No free lunch.
Boy, that Wexler stuff.
Yeah, he's tough. We'll cut our workload 80%. So they-
Application number 441-24, Misael Amaya Moran and Alex Constante. Permission to establish accessory apartment pursuant to Issaquah Code Section 68-602 in new dwelling in violation of Section 68-613, requiring dwelling to be at least 7 years in age, having gross floor area of 801 square feet instead of permitted 800 square feet. Residence B District, east side of Stein Drive, 600 feet south of Jensen Road, Bay Shore.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm back. Okay. Jose Taveras. Our client is here with us also. As you can see, we're looking at the original application that we had started submitting for this house because there was a fire damage at a house, was to maintain the first floor walls and then just build a second story addition. But the building department forced us to remove or demolish the entire house. That's why we're looking at a new house at this point. But the original intent was to still, on the second floor, provide a new accessory apartment. It was about 2 years. Yeah. Not before, no.
whole idea is codes don't build apartments.
I understand, but unfortunately, in their situation, because of the fire, that's why it's considered a new house now. But it did have an existing house.
Well, if there wasn't a fire, would we grant it? What they're telling me is, it's not near the 7 years.
heard it once before, to my knowledge.
Right, I remember that.
It,
like
I
10
think,
years ago.
about 2 months ago.
That one. And then there was one about.
Getting a little old, aren't we?
I think if I recall, it was 5.5 years old. It was 5.5 years old,
It was 5.5
the
years
house, and the board felt that it was just a statutory thing and that it really didn't have the ability to vary it, and told the applicant to come back in a year and a half.
Yeah, I mean, it's a use variance.
Yeah.
But to answer your question about how the fire affects it,
I would think you'd grandfather if they are rebuilding a house. From the time they deeded the property, I would think the time runs. You're not going to penalize them for having a fire.
No, but if there was an existing.
Did they buy it?
Even if they didn't have
fire, after the fire or before?
No, they owned the house.
How long?
barely. So after closing and before recording of the deed, the fire happened.
So they,
How old is the house?
It was
Okay, just
pretty
one
old.
second.
It was old.
they bought the house on February 9th of 2023.
Let me ask a question. Though. If you didn't have fire, would we have granted it?
If the house was still there?
Yes.
Well, yeah, because it long predated the 7-year restriction. It was built in.
So it's not it's a use restriction, not an ownership restriction.
Correct.
That's when it starts.
Are we penalizing them for fire that they presumably didn't start?
Yes,
And if you didn't have the fire, this would be a run-of-the-mill grant.
correct.
Okay.
So now I feel that probably we should grant this because you can't punish somebody because there was a fire if they didn't start the fire.
But if they
Or
started the
intentionally. Intentionally.
How did the fire start?
That was electric?
No, they don't know yet. So they have been shooting some 2 people and also the fire department body. Then first thing they say the boiler, water. Then when I still ask why the power exploded, and then they say it's not a like no like something 100%. You can see that's why they move me over. They walk around.
All right, thank you.
Planning, any comments?
You didn't start the fire, did you? Okay. Look on.
Is there anyone else who would like to be heard in this application?
Jose, just to be clear, the house has been demolished. It's not-
Yes, at this point, we demolished it completely. The foundation stays.
and it's going to be roughly the same size as it was
Yes,
before.
yes.
So
Technically new construction, but
Are they going to use a foundation?
The existing, we are reusing, we're adding a slight, a little bit around the back and the side, yes. Not the side, the back.
I'm fine.
Yep, I'm good.
All right, then I'll take a motion, please.
Make a motion to approve the application
For
for a period of 3 years.
All in favor? Aye. Application is granted.
Thank you very much.
Aye.
Oh, my God.
Is a good one. Application number 442-24, Jorge Marca, to renew permit for two-family, family use only. Residence A District, west side of Craig Road, 653.55 feet south of Rock Road, Islip Terrace.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Roxanne Trella, Dynamic Expediting Services with offices at 231. I don't. I do know it was not the little girl. She was very
Billy Joel
cute.
started the-
Islip, New York, 11751. We're here today for a renewal of a two-family, family use only permit. The original hearing was held back on January 10th, 2023. At that time, it was granted for a period of 6 months due to neighbor opposition. We then had the first renewal. The hearing was held on September 5th, 2023. Again, we were granted a 6-month renewal on November 14th, and we're here again for a renewal, hopefully this time for the 3-year period.
Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard in this application? Please come up in the front.
Hi, Stephen Rizzo, 77 Craig Road, Islip Terrace. I submitted a letter to the board dated April 26, 2024, along with a copy of a June 13th, 2023 letter that I submitted with a list of our problems and concerns. I'll read them all to you if you want me to do so, if you haven't read them yet, because I have copies of them. Okay, great. But I'm here for the same thing that we've been here for about 3 or 4 years now. Nothing's changed out there that we've written about in the letters. The one thing I might have said in the letter, but I just have to repeat here, is it's not a two-family, family use only. That's not the use of the property. The owner, the tenant, and his father for a few days a week live downstairs. The upstairs is rented out to tenants. It was discussed previously twice. You listened and you asked if we had evidence, receipts, or if we saw cash passing hands, and you can't see that stuff. What we do have is my wife's got some notes of conversations that she's had with 2 or 3 of the tenants upstairs, and she's going to present that to you. So for the third time, I ask you to please deny this application. Thank you. Can I ask you, about a year, yeah, it's,
And then, and I'll, very first,
21, 22.
and it's the same issue.
It's the same, yes, yes, yes.
Has there been any code enforcement activity? If anybody called?
Well, there was initially, and I think that's what triggered the application. You know, if someone came in, told them how to move things along, get things squared away. Been a little code enforcement, building department's been there. The police chase that was an isolated, excuse me? About then, yes.
Okay, and you recall what we said?
You gave them six months to, yeah, and then you had mentioned you had mentioned the evidence. Did we see cash, et cetera? And it's just not working. So that.
Let's hear from everyone else.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else who would like to hear?
Terry Lesser, 77 Craig Road. And could I just clarify that this is for 3 years? It's not stated in the notice. The renewal is 3 years. Okay, because it's just not in there. If you'll allow me to just read a statement.
Can you just give us, summarize it rather than read?
Kind of a summary of the last 6 letters and 3 hearings that we've been to. So I will give you that, yes, yeah. And this is kind of my, our only opportunity to deal with you guys, so please afford me 2 minutes. I'd appreciate that. Okay, thank you. All right. As noted in detail, I had 2 prior hearings and 6 letters from myself, just as many from my husband, and multiple letters and statements from neighbors. This is not a 2-family, family use only dwelling. On October 18th, 2022, at the initial hearing, a ZBA member explained to us that this type of permit was issued for someone of familial descent. In this case, it was the father of the homeowner, and with certain mitigating criteria. In this case, we were told a medical reason was submitted with the application. First and foremost, the homeowner's father does not live there. At the second hearing in September of 23, and in at least one subsequent communication with the ZBA office, I and my dear friend and neighbor, Mr. Kevin Schmidt, who recently passed, were told that we had to provide evidence that they were paying tenants in the upstairs of this house. We were asked if we saw monies exchanged or had direct evidence of a rental agreement.
Can I just ask you a question?
Please.
Let's go back to the last 6 months. Tell us what you've seen that brings you here. Tell us.
Okay.
Cars, dogs.
The original,
We have that in the record.
what I saw was what I didn't see. I don't see the father living there.
What else?
Basically, that's it. That's the. No, I'm saying he never lived there. That is the sole requirement for the issuance of this type of permit, and it doesn't seem to matter anymore.
That's why okay, so then you haven't seen him there for the last 6 months.
He does come to visit. He stays in the downstairs unit with the family, with the homeowner. He never enters the upstairs unit. How do I know that? I see it on a daily basis. We actually know homeowner's father. We've met. We know his vehicle. I know when his vehicle is there. I see the 3 vehicles that the people who only exit and enter through the upstairs apartment use on a.
You see him there and what length? The reason I ask, a friend of mine is an airline pilot, so he'll be gone 5 days, home 4 days, I'm flying to Europe. So how often do you see him? How long do you see him?
I do see the homeowner's father there every week. He's usually there for 2 or 3 days. I don't think he's an airline pilot. I don't know where he is the rest of the time, but I'm pretty sure he does not occupy that upstairs unit with the at least 3 other people there. That changes on and off. We know his vehicle, unless he drives 4 vehicles simultaneously, he's not there. There are, at the current time, 3 vehicles for upstairs, and I believe 2 vehicles that belong to the homeowner. There are 5 vehicles there, typically on a daily basis. Again, at this time, sometimes they come and go. Okay, I'd like to submit the rest of my statement that I wasn't permitted to read.
Is there anyone else that'd like to hear this application?
Yes, I have a response. So this process initially started because when the homeowner purchased the home, he did have a very volatile tenant there. That tenant was removed. That was the tenant that required the police chase and whatever else happened. Because of the situation with that tenant, the property owner decided not to go for an accessory apartment and to solely go for a family use. He moved his father in. His father lives in the lower level unit. He is there for half of the week, and the other half of the week, he's with a sibling in Queens, which I did testify to at the last hearing. At the last hearing, we submitted for a post-submission packet, his bank statements, utility bills in the father's name, and we did have a code enforcement inspector come to that property as well. And at that time, I requested not just an investigator, I asked for the supervisor to come because of the issues. Supervisor Robin Benson was there, and she also provided a memorandum to the Zoning Board of Appeals office. There have been no new complaints. That letter was provided last summer. I provided a no violations letter dated August 28th, 2023. I did call the Code Enforcement Division this morning to see if there were any violations. There have not been any since that letter was provided. At that time, go ahead. The other 2 adults is his brother and his girlfriend. They all live together. Even when the investigator was there, there's pretty much free flow between the entire house. We provided photos of the interior of the house at every level, every room, both kitchens, bathrooms, to show not only that the home is meticulously maintained, but to show the free flow between the 2 families.
And then what is the definition of living inside?
Half the week, and then because the property owner works 3 jobs. So when he's not able to be home with the dad stays with the sibling in Queens, and then he brings him back when he's there. Thank you. Have a good night.
We may have to formulate a definition of what living is.
I think live is to sleep.
Maybe he's an airline.
Application number 443-24, Tyrell and Taisha Hall. Permission to leave in-ground pool having side yard of 13.25 feet instead of required 18 feet. and pool patio having side yard of 3.9 feet instead of required 6 feet, to maintain 6-foot fence on front property line instead of required 10 feet, and within driveway site distance triangle where prohibited. Residence A and Residence AA District, northeast corner of Islip Avenue and Juniper Street, Islip.
Good evening again. My name is Melissa Graham. I'm from Long Island Perfect Permits. We reside at 124 Front Street, Suite 205, Massapequa Park, 11762, and we are the agent representing Tyrell and Taisha Hall. They are the owners of 541 Islip Avenue in Islip. They are before me. An application was filed for an in-ground pool. The pool was installed in 2022. The pool was constructed with a setback of 13.9 feet, where 18 feet was required. The pool was originally approved with a 14-foot setback. The installer mismeasured from the fence line rather than the property line. At the time when the permit was approved, my client didn't realize they needed to maintain a 6-foot setback for the patio. Patio around the pool maintains a side yard setback of 3.9 feet. These setback issues were discovered when my client obtained a new survey with all the improvements they did. They're also seeking to maintain a 6-foot PVC fence on their second front yard, as they are located on a corner of a very busy road. You can see the pictures for the fencing in the neighbor's driveway. The fence maintains a 2-foot setback where 10 feet is required. My clients understand that they may need to relocate the sections of the fencing that's not on their property, but they are asking to keep the 2-foot setback so they don't lose more of that side yard, so they can enjoy the pool with their friends and family. They have obtained a permit for the AC unit and the front porch. All permits will be closed out when the variance is completed. They have spoken to some of their surrounding neighbors, do not have any issues with the variances being granted today. We do have a neighbor consent form that I would like to submit. The 2 neighbors that are okay with.
Thank you.
And then, if you have any questions, we're here to answer them.
When was the pool built?
2022. They purchased the home in 2021, so the pool was their first improvement.
Planning, you have any comments on it?
Yeah, with regards to the pool, it did receive a building permit issue. This particular property is split zone, residence A and residence AA, which is why I'm hoping the setback requirement. It's split zone in the back. So other properties along Islip Avenue here are actually up in residence A, which will require 14-foot setback. I think that would be a fair way to be looking at this. So it's going to be more of a 13-foot. With regards to the fence, the site distance triangle is a problem. And the property itself is a little over 14,250. It would not fall under the exception, it would fall under the normal. So that one is.
The fence, the whole length of it.
Yeah, the whole length of it is on the side property. Or beyond it, maybe it's on the surface. I would just add, if the board did want to look at that, the house itself is about 7.8 feet from that second front yard. It's there legally. So if the board were to go and deny the fence, I don't know what they want to do. I would say it would actually make more sense to try to do the house rather than just it would be stranger to have a setback behind the actual outside.
But how would we grant fence? It's not even on their property.
Would.
Same as the house.
What I'm trying to say is that if the fence is something that you're seeking to deny, instead of denying it outright, they can have it in line with the house at some point.
Or they could reduce it to 4 feet,
The
right?
house kind of right now.
Wouldn't they have to reduce the height though?
That would be an alternative option. They could either reduce it to 4 feet and keep it on the second front yard, or they could take it 6 feet and set it back further. Yeah, it's like just trying.
The site distance triangle an issue or not? We brought it down to 4 feet.
Site distance triangle is actually.
Okay. All right, so heard what planning's comments were.
No, I understand that. A 6 foot, they're on a busy road, so the 6 foot is just for privacy, 4 foot when they're in their pool. They don't want everyone staring at them in their backyard. To try and keep it as close, they understand, if they have to put that clear sight triangle in the corner to keep the 6 feet. We've spoken about it and they have agreed to it. As far as moving the whole entire fence to the 7.8, they were asking for 2. So
They can reduce the height.
that's before, it's up to you. So what they're asking you is this thing that you would have to move the fence to in line with the house, so it'd be 7.8, not the 10. That's required to be approved.
That's a suggestion, but I think that's.
Would that be something that would be considered?
Because I've never known Bill not to be.
You knew.
I'm trying.
Just now.
He's an
I'm
ability.
fine. I gotta get my.
I'm the reasonable man. It's in the eye of the beholder.
I gotta get my crumb chops. No, I'm staying right here.
In the meantime, is there anyone else that would like to be heard in this application? We can grant it at 7.8 feet, or you can reduce it to 4 feet. That's basically your choice.
Okay.
And then the site distance triangle, you're gonna have to bring in compliance.
Can she speak?
Ken? Name and address, please.
Hi, Taisha Hall, homeowner. The inspectors had already come out initially and told us to move the fence to where we put it, to where this angle is. So to move it again would be a financial hardship to do this. We had already originally had the fence installed, then we took the fence down, reinstalled it where the inspectors told us to do it. And now to have to take the fence down again and pay to have it reinstalled. Yeah.
Well, the fence is not on your property line, so did the inspector maybe tell you to set it back 10 feet from the street?
Right, he gave us.
The street is not your property line.
Yes, he said to set it back from the curb 10 feet back.
Right,
So
Right.
so we were
So-
under
so-
the understanding that that was the appropriate.
So that's not your property line. There's probably 8 foot of right of way that belongs to
Okay.
the town and the public. So you set it back from your property line, but you don't measure from the street.
Okay. Got it.
All right.
Thanks.
So the fence and the site triangle.
The rest of it's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right, so I'll take a motion then, deny the fence and the site
Are
triangle.
they going to keep the 6 foot fence and set it back to 7.8
Yeah.
feet?
That's what we'll allow,
Okay.
So
I think.
we'll see what comes out of my mouth. So I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Oh,
that
yeah.
we, deny so much of the application seeking
Mhm.
the pay to maintain a 6 foot fence on the property line. However, granted a setback 7.8 feet. I'm in line with the house, also deny so much of the application. The property 10 feet and within the driveway site distance triangle where prohibited. That's why. And grant remainder of the application.
Can I get a second on that,
I
please?
second that.
All in favor? Aye. Application is denied and portion and granted to the town. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay. Application number 444-24, JBD2 Associates LLC. Permission to leave entrance canopy 13.1 by 35, resulting in floor area ratio of 41.3% instead of permitted 35%. Industrial 1 District, west side of Rannoch Road, 271.49 feet north of Express Drive North, Hauppauge.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Thank you for your time this evening. I appreciate it. My name is Phil D'Amico. I'm the,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I'm not on the board.
My apologies.
I play an attorney, but I'm not one.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. How's that? Okay, thank you. My name is Phil D'Amico. I'm the Executive Vice President of Pennsylvania Steel. We're located at 10 Rannoch Road in Hauppauge. For 10 years, we leased in Bethpage. So we had a facility that we paid rent on. October of 2022, we invested $17 million in this particular building. Since that time, we have added about $3 million in improvements and items that the town wanted us to take care of to get it up to code. And so this is kind of the last piece of the approval, which is the canopy. We have about 35 employees. We've used all local contractors to do our work. I've got every invoice here, which would total about $3 million worth of activity that we've posted. We've added 6 new employees, all from the local area. Understood. Other than, okay.
The IDA, maybe, not relevant.
Okay.
Quick question, are they able to, are they okay if they don't enclose? We limit the extension? Huh? Oh, you're the principal. Okay, are you okay if we limit the extension to not being enclosed?
It is not enclosed.
And we're going to limit it as such.
Correct. Well, we've added, we've added everything around it, all of the necessary ADA, that's all been taken care of. All new ramps, all new concrete, all of that stuff. So, yep. No, it will never be enclosed. No.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard in this application? No planning, any comment? I'll take a motion then.
Make a motion to approve the application.
Second, as long as it's not closed.
Right. Second, all in favor? Aye, application is granted.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
You're welcome. It's nice that you address me.
No.
It was really nice. It's that white. Application number 445-24, Gerald and Patrice O'Shea. Permission to elevate dwelling and to erect second-story and two-story additions, leaving front yard of 24.3 feet instead of required 25 feet, side yard of 10.27 feet instead of required 15 feet, and rear yard of 24.9 feet instead of required 25 feet. To erect second-story balcony, leaving front yard of 20.3 feet, and decking, leaving front yard of 14.1 feet instead of required 25 feet each, side yard of 6.1 feet instead of required 15 feet. Mechanical platform, leaving side yard of 7 feet instead of required 15 feet, resulting in floor area ratio of 42.31% instead of permitted 30%. Residence BAA District, east side of West Lighthouse Walk, 120 feet south of Cedar Court, Kismet.
Good evening, James Bowler, architect. My office is 85 East Main Street in Bay Shore. The existing residence is a one-story wood frame residence. It's not FEMA compliant, severely not FEMA compliant. So we're a coastal A zone, AE 11. So the project is to elevate the house to FEMA compliance and do a second floor on the existing footprint. So the proposed design is the same footprint as the existing house, 24.3 to the front yard, 24.9 to the rear. The side yard matches the existing 10.3. I do want to point out that we're having a new septic system, which is on the south side. So there's no ability to move the property on the footprint. The new front deck is aligning with the existing front deck at 14.1 feet. The entry platform on the side is also aligning with the existing side deck with 16.9 feet. I do want to add that the client, his mother is in a wheelchair, so we gave a little bit more room on the side for the outdoor shower to allow proper ADA access and use of the outdoor shower from the second floor. We are seeking an FAR 42.31. We did some research of the application in the area. So we had application 300.23, 18 Lighthouse Walk, which is the next door neighbor's 42.1. Another approved variance was 337-23 was approved at 42.1. Also, there was one approved for more at 59 Pond Walk, but it's 3 blocks away. And that was approved for 45.66%.
Anything, you have any comments?
Yeah, not much to add on to that. The precedent cited is correct. Two recent cases are the one big record, one of which was stipulated. So it would seem that the community may be moving forward with that number. There is one or two cases to go above and beyond that, but one of those cases, it's mostly, I think, the other one, I think, had a 42.1 seems to be more so what the seems to hold there.
You're okay with the other side, the setbacks? Is that right?
The setbacks, like you were saying, are mostly existing. None of this gets elevated. But I don't believe anything. The only one that I had questioned was the front yard. I don't think anything setbacks.
You heard it from our boss, 42.1. My boss. Still my boss.
Anyone else who would like to be heard in this application? Okay. 42.1.
Right.
I take a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make a motion that we deny so much the application, 42.1 FAR and grant 42.1 and grant the remainder of the application.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Application is granted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Yeah.
No, but it's hard to get up.
I know.
Yeah. Oh, right. Oh, he definitely does.
I don't listen.
Yeah, right. Somebody's got.
Application number 446-24, Mark and Linda Rubman, permission to install boat lift, leaving side yard of 1.5 feet instead of required 10 feet. Residence AAA District, north side of Post Lane, 471.99 feet east of South Saxon Avenue, Bay Shore.
Hi, good evening. Mark Rubman, 9 Post Lane, Bay Shore, New York.
Good evening, sir. Planning, do you have any comments on this? Take your time.
So the code requires a 10-foot setback.
Correct.
And you want 1.5.
Correct. So there are 2 slips at the eastern end of my property. I don't know if you can see right where Nick's pointing out. One of them, the north, is 14 foot wide. The one on the south is 11 foot. You can see there are 2 pilings present there.
Yes.
That's a very shallow ingress to what we call the lagoon or the area of the waterfront around the house. That's my entire property, both sides of the canal. So the proposed boat lift is 14 foot wide. The minimum width necessary for the boat that I currently own is 12 foot. Does not fit in the southern slip. Any widening of the southern slip will create a non-navigable passageway into the entry to the canal. The bulkheaded end of the canal by the house currently has temporary docking space to allow friends and family to safely board the boat and a floating dock for jet skis. There's no reasonable way to place the boat lift in the southern slip and maintain access to the remainder of the canal without the elimination of one of the 2 boat slips. The requested variance is not substantial. It will have no adverse.
Wait.
Very substantial.
Not substantial. It's an 85% relaxation. How could you, with a straight face, say it's not substantial? If
Wanna
the
withdraw
code
that statement?
It's not
requires 10,
numerically. Maybe you
Correct.
meant to say it's not numerically.
Given the circumstances.
It's not a Okay, I take that back.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm a surgeon, not a lawyer.
Substantial.
Okay, thank you.
It should not have any impact on the neighbor's property. All of the property is mine, and in fact, there is a precedent that you can see the boat just to the north on the property line is on a boat lift.
Doesn't the issue become if it makes it less navigable?
Yeah, so the purpose for the code is mostly about whether or not it's looking at other people's navigation or any kind of concern that maybe the boat swinging in the neighbor. Second one is the boat lift system, placing it a real concern. As far as navigability is concerned, it's on either side, there's a pier, so it's not going to be any less in that regard. And as for the applicant themselves, they have that sort of area on the other side of their property. He does not want to dredge it, it's a wetland, so you can't really place this anywhere else in this property. So it does need to be up at the base there, and as you had explained, in keeping his own ability to do that. Or the, I believe it's like a jet ski. Jet ski, they're both probably.
You did a great job.
Anyone else that would like to be heard in this application? Make a motion, please.
I'll make a motion, not ending the substantiality of the application. And the application.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Grant.
Pardon my English, thank you. Have a good night. I'm an orthopedist. Right, and a good captain, but not that good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Application number 447-24, Kelvin Amaya Herrera and Teresa Bermudez. Permission to leave shed having second front yard of 15.6 feet instead of required 30 feet. Shed having rear yard of 2.4 feet instead of required 4 feet. Patio having rear yard of 2.6 feet instead of required 4 feet. Roof overs attached to dwelling having rear yards of 1.6 feet and 3.2 feet instead of required 25 feet each, and floor area ratio of 26.95% instead of permitted 25%. 6-foot fence on front property line not having a required setback of 15 feet, and second front yard of 0.3 feet instead of required 10 feet. 5-foot wall and fence leaving front yard of 1.9 feet instead of required 15 feet, and to leave portion of 5-foot high wall and fence within driveway site distance triangles where prohibited. Residence A District, southwest corner of McNair Street and Crooked Hill Road, Brentwood.
Good evening. My name is Jose Castillo. I'm with New Hope Expediting. I'm an expediter working on the case of Kelvin Amaya Herrera and Teresa Bermudez. And I'm here to seek permission to leave the sheds and the roof overs because there's a little rear yard on the property.
Landon, you have any comments on this?
There's a lot to take in here.
There is.
Yeah, it's a very long call. So with regards to the roof overs, them being attached to the dwelling gives them a setback equivalent to the dwelling. I don't know the specifics. If they were to be detached, I know that they would be accessory structures. I at the time I'm looking into the setback. So over. So that is really less than 500 square feet will be the 4-foot setback. I don't know the specifics on that though. The fence, there's a lot to dig in. There's 3 different parts of fence to reference here. The second front yard, which this lot is 8,607 square feet. It's not meeting the exception specifically because there's a fence in the front yard as well. It's not corner. Otherwise, that would meet that exception. Then there's a 6-foot fence that's on the diagonal here. This is the front yard. That's a, I believe, chain link fence. And then there is the 5-foot wall fence on the remainder of the property. The wall itself is 5 feet at the top of the pillar.
Maybe,
believe there are.
I think Street View is best. Sorry.
I think we have pictures.
Oh, we do have pictures also. But Street, yeah,
We have pictures.
yeah, we do. They're good enough, Nick.
Plenty of
I
pictures.
can't tell how far is the roof over porch from the property.
The roof over, there's two different roof overs being referenced. So one of them is,
Yeah.
What about the one that's next to the house?
I believe that one is 3.2.
3.2 instead of
5.5.
25.
And then there's the one that's actually just on the corner of the house, which makes it the back structure. That goes from that towards the shed, which is about. It's, I don't really understand why it's that.
Oh, I see. Right. And that distance is, I'm sorry,
1.6 instead of required for 5. Again, it being attached to the house, it's at 88.7.
and the house only holds 12.8.
Yeah, I don't have that in front of me right now.
I'm just looking at the survey.
I would agree with that.
Right, so.
It is a shallow rear yard, that one.
But.
There's 3 fences. That's.
I would say yes. Yeah.
There's a fence on the property line, not on Route 15. The second article.
Not a substantial amount. Last two. Wow. And then 1.6.
Yes, it's the same, but it's a different condition. Filled it in.
Yeah, those pictures do.
That was the photos, I'm sorry.
We have one that's a chain link fence. We have one that's, well, that's the front fence, right? That we're looking at.
Like I said, there's two front fences.
There's one that's on the side that's chain linked in some of the pictures and it's filled in with like a
Yeah,
green.
that's the second front yard. I don't think that's a problem.
Okay.
Then there's the chain link one that's not filled in, which is also technically on the front yard. That one is. And then there's the one that is the sort of wrought iron, that's with the pillars.
Right.
Which is 5 feet height on the front yard along the driveway, which is also the site structure.
Could we just start with the roof over before? Here's my, over here on the west side of the property. My, 25 foot setback, the house only holds 12.8. I don't know how it got that way. It's close. I don't know what the house neighborhood holds. 12.8 in the heartland, or is that?
Where's he saying it's survey? Oh, here.
In 3.2.
As compared to 25, yes, that's, it's actually,
Right. I'm not holding the 25.
detaching the structure will probably be the benefit of this one here with shed, if they can get that below 500 square feet, attach it to the house, 6 instead of 4, which I'm not going to say it's not a high percentage variation, but it's
What would
only
be,
about 2.4 feet.
right, would it be more accurate to say that we're actually have 3.2 instead of 12.8? Even
You
if
could choose to look at it that way.
I'm just saying, because that's what's there, and granted, I see it. Granted,
I mean, I don't think that's obviously the decision whether to go that way, but I think it's reasonable to say that if it were 12.8, the house is already 12.8.
So if we look at it 3.2 instead of 12.8, still significant.
Yes.
So, I mean, 12.8, a 6-foot setback from the house. Building 66. We have 17,000. And the same thing with the roof over at gave 6 feet. Property.
Personally, that's what they did, attach that.
That would be their one.
It would be.
Right, then it would comply.
It would not comply.
But it would get much closer.
Yeah, it would certainly sound a lot. The roof over almost front. It's most of the rear yard. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Front fence is a problem though too, right?
And then, yeah.
And that's probably the most expensive.
Pretty nice fence. Yeah, looking at the photograph, the roof over the whole length of the house. Plus, yeah, right, though. I'm suspecting that nobody got a permit.
I don't think that's that wild of a guess.
Yeah.
It's a reasonable. Our council said it's a reasonable guess.
It's a reasonable guess, not a while. 6 feet sound reasonable. Setback.
Or they detach. I mean, I think they got a lot of issues with this application.
I don't know how we can address them all.
That does get complicated.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right. That's
I don't
why
know
I'm
the
saying
exact size.
It's too hard. If we give 6 feet, then we have a number to work.
You have a number.
It's
You have a number that they're working with,
right.
whether it works or not.
Right. They got it. That's just assuming. What do we do about the 5?
Well, no, there is no.
Oh, then I have right. You know.
I don't think there's really much that ends up being.
What do we have?
To be honest, I didn't really look into that aspect of it. Didn't seem relevant.
True. So then maybe we shouldn't be looking at it. It's already compromised. Big. And also, probably, what is the owner? The house is 35 feet long, and it goes 27 feet over.
I mean, my thoughts on it are that the one rear roof over that's attached to the greatest length of the house, probably. The other one, I think they should see, try to figure it out.
That's fine.
I don't know about. Depends what they end up coming up with. I don't know. Yeah, probably.
What about the FAR?
The FAR is fine.
Yeah, the roof over the back. The second front yard fence, so the one that's at 10 feet, problem, in most circumstances, the exception provided in code, it doesn't because of the front yard fence, but rest, I believe, the second front yard fence, the one with 10 feet.
So it's really the two roofs over.
And the front yard.
And the front yard fence, which is substantial.
There's a part of it that's a site obstruction. Specifically, I would say the wrought iron part maybe could be argued not to be, but there's a pillar right now to the driveway.
Are we denying?
I think that the board has rendered decisions in the past when there's columns and wrought iron, that it's not as imposing as a solid 5-foot fence. I don't think the board would grant the columns, though, in the site distance triangle.
But also, we have had matters where columns were, the fence kind of was scalloped, or lower than the columns, it's straight. straight across.
Right, we had one of those, but I
Right.
think if they're saying if you're taking the stanchions out that are along the
Side
driveway,
triangle.
you're eliminating the issue.
Right, okay, I'm good. So the side triangle got to be complied with, and the two roofed over porches. Go ahead.
Seems completely reasonable to me under the
Not
circumstances.
wildly.
Does anyone else like to be heard in this application? Okay. Want to make a motion?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll try to turn it off. I'll make a motion that we deny finish the application seeking a relaxation of the roofed over porches, both of them. The northerly one and the southerly one alongside the house, and one that is on the survey roofed over.
Both of them.
Yeah, just both of them.
Just both of them.
Also, we're going to deny the application for the site triangle relaxation that we apply with and grant the remainder.
And deny the FAR.
And deny the FAR.
I mean, it's so de minimis. Why do we? Yeah.
Oh, well, is it?
Well, that's a.
It's so de
that's something
minimis.
you would grant. That's right.
We
Okay.
would? Okay, then, all right, scratch that.
Okay, scratch that.
Like Scrooge here.
We'll approve the FAR.
We'll approve the FAR
Okay.
and grant the remainder of the application.
All right, I'll take a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Case is denied, motion is granted.
Thank you.
Okay, get ready.
Ready then. Application number 448-24, 111 Oak Walk LLC. Permission to elevate dwelling, leaving front yard of 17.9 feet and rear yard of 21.6 feet instead of required 25 feet each. Decking, leaving front yard of 10 feet instead of required 25 feet. Side yards of 10 feet and 5 feet instead of required 15 feet each. To erect second-story decking, leaving front yard of 17.9 feet instead of required 25 feet. And to erect additions and alterations, leaving floor area ratio of 46.25% instead of permitted 30%. Residence Triple AB District, east side of Oak Walk, 320 feet south of Central Walk, Fair Harbor.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Anthony Guardino, partner with the law firm of Farrell Fritz in Hauppauge. And I represent Oak Walk LLC and the Remmer Long family, who are the owners of the property located at 111 Oak Walk in Fair Harbor. The applicant is before you tonight, requesting that the board grant area variance relief to allow them to repost and elevate their existing one-story house in order to comply with the FEMA regulations and to enlarge it by adding a one and two story additions to reconstruct and reconfigure decks and access walks and ramps, and to reconstruct an outdoor shower and install an innovative alternative on-site waste management system, which is now required by the Suffolk County Department of Health Services. Also presenting with me tonight is Nicholas Petchek, a well-known architect who has designed many homes on Fire Island and is familiar with Fire Island's many communities, including Fair Harbor. I also have Kelly Risotto, an environmental consultant and principal of Land Use Environmental. There are also several members of the Remmer Long family here tonight to answer any questions that the board may have. The Remmer Longs are longtime residents and business owners in the town of Islip. Sam Wood, the builder, is also present in case there are any questions. So the subject property is rectangular in shape. It is 60 feet wide by 80 feet deep, located on the east side of Oak Walk. It is 3 lots north, is the third lot north from the Atlantic Ocean. It is located at the northern boundary of the town's residence Triple AB zoning district. It is currently improved with a one-story frame dwelling with decks and an outdoor shower, all of which are the subject of a certificate of occupancy. The FAR of the dwelling and the existing improvements calculated based on the code that existed at the time is 46.13%. However, we are well aware that the code has changed and the FAR is calculated differently today. But currently, when it was built, it was at 46.13. The property is also, or was also, the subject of a variance application that was unanimously granted by the predecessor board back in 1957, which granted front yard, side yard, and rear yard setback relief.
There is also a utility easement that runs adjacent to the east side of the property in a north-south direction, and that utility easement separates and buffers the improvements that are on this lot from the residences to the east that front on Holly Walk. There are single-family residences located to the north, east, and south and west of the property, including several larger two-story residences that are located on Oak Walk, south of Central Walk, so right in the immediate area. These are located at 79, 95, 96, 107, and 116 Oak Walk. And there are many other larger two-story residences on the adjacent walks and in the surrounding area. So the applicant is before you tonight seeking several area variances to basically maintain some existing conditions and to allow the structures to be elevated to comply with FEMA and to enlarge them. And these structures are generally within the magnitude of relief that the board has previously granted, except for a portion of the ramp along the north side of the property. So that ramp actually does encroach further into the setback than what was previously granted and what was previously, what is there today. I will point out, though, that the ramp only encroaches when it gets above 4 feet. So the majority of the ramp actually does not encroach. It's just the part above the 4 feet. And I'm going to let Nick Petchek explain that in a little bit more detail. So we need to, the variances are to elevate the dwelling, leaving a front yard setback of 17.9 feet and a rear yard setback of 21.6 instead of the required 25. And then to elevate the decking, leaving a front yard setback of 10 feet instead of the 25 feet and side yards of 10 and 5 instead of the required 15. And again, on the north side, that's where we encroach a little bit further. But the first variance is a same basic footprint. To erect the second-story decking, leaving a front yard setback of 17.9 feet instead of the required 25 feet. I will point out, though, that that second floor decking is actually the same as the front line of the existing house. So right now, there's a roof there, and they're proposing a deck, but the structure, the bulk is already there. And then to construct additions and alterations resulting in an FAR of 46.25% instead of the permitted 30%. The proposed second-story addition does not exceed the maximum height restriction in the residence AAA-B district. And moreover, with the exception of a portion of the ramp, as I explained, at the north side of the property, all of the proposed improvements are within the setback lines that were previously approved by this board. And so in other words, the overall footprint of the dwelling, additions and the deck is actually smaller than the footprint of the existing improvements, except for that top portion of that ramp on the north side. The 46.25% FAR request appears to be within the range of FAR relief that this board has previously granted. There are a couple of decisions I just point out. Walt Hutter in 2012 at 97 Cranberry Walk. This board granted 53%. Grimaldi, 2021 at 70 Oak Walk, 51.9%. And there was Belle D. Dempsey in 2013 at 92 Broadway at 40.8%. And then Ryan Ruvalo in 2017 at 48 Central Walk, 40.8%. There was also an application filed by Eugene Levy, who owns the residence at 96 Oak Walk. You may have seen the letter that he submitted in opposition to this application, asking that the board reject this variance, the granting of the FAR variances, because in his words, it is a significant deviation from the current zoning requirements, which were designed to maintain the character, safety, and livability of our neighborhood. I remind the board that Mr. Levy filed a variance application in 2019, just a couple of years ago, seeking a variance, an FAR variance, for 53.3%, much larger than what my client is seeking, and greater than any of the other variances that I could find, FAR variances that I could find that this board had granted. He later amended his application when presumably became evident that he wasn't going to get it, so he withdrew that part of the application, but he did seek it. And so I think the board should question the sincerity and the basis for his opposition. The other letters in opposition, I believe, miscomprehend the nature of the relief being requested, as well as the impact of the Coastal Erosion Hazard Act.
which we call CHA. That's the acronym. I believe that the opponents are viewing the setback relief in a vacuum as if it was not previously granted. I'm not sure that people know that there was relief granted in 1957. And they're also viewing this as if the structures are not there today and as if we're asking to exceed what the zoning requires, like this was a vacant lot, and that's not the case. As previously mentioned, with the exception of the portion of the northern ramp that goes above the 4 feet in height, this proposal is not seeking any greater setback relief than what was already granted. And as for the CHA requirements, and as Kelly Risotto will explain shortly, this proposal will comply with the CHA regulations. I believe this is a red herring claim designed to raise concern by the board where none should exist. Several opponents are asking this board to uphold the letter of the law and not grant any relief like it has done so many times in the past, including the 42% FAR variance that the board just granted a short time ago for property on Fire Island. These opponents, I don't believe, understand that what the purpose of this board. Well, no, okay. Well, okay. Okay. That's fine. Okay. Okay. That's fine. That's fine. Okay. I just would point out that this is a Board of Appeals. So, yes, you know that. That's right. It's intended to grant variances. Yes. Well, and you're bound, as we have said in the past, I've said many times, obviously the board knows you're bound by the 5 factors and the test in 267B. I'm going to address the test in a few minutes. I'm going to ask Nick to come up first and then Kelly, and then I'll circle back if that's okay with the board. Thank you. Thanks very much.
My name's Nicholas Petchak. I am a seasonal resident of Fire Island since 1959. I'm a New York State Registered Architect and did my first job in Fire Island probably in 1986. And since then have probably done well over 100 houses from the Pines down to Kismet, predominantly in the Saltair, Kismet, Fair Harbor, Dunewood area. The current house is about 2 feet below, a little bit less than 2 feet below where it's required to be under FEMA law. We want to raise it to that level. The existing house, as was described, doesn't comply with the current setback requirements, but we are not increasing any of the existing footprint. We're actually removing some of the deck on both the south side and on the west side. The one portion that is a little tricky is that you're allowed a 5-foot setback for a deck below 4 feet, on which we are complying with on the north side, but it's a ramp. And when it reaches the 4-foot level, it then requires a 15-foot setback. But that's being 4 foot wide, it also doesn't count as FAR. So there's a tricky little difference between FAR requirements and setback requirements as far as ramps. And so it's a fairly de minimis area, but obviously it's fairly customary in Fire Island to be able to roll a wagon up to your house. As far as the house itself, the second floor addition, it complies with all of the setback requirements of today's setback requirements. It complies with the 25 feet in both directions, east and west, and north and south complies with the 25 feet overall that's required. As far as the height of the house, it's below the height limit by a couple of feet, 1.5 feet, I think. And in terms of the character of Fire Island and the neighborhoods, like I say, I'm familiar with designing a lot of houses, and Fair Harbor certainly has 2-story houses. And I think this is similar in scale to all of those. The one tricky part that I'd like to explain, which was touched on a little bit, is that the existing house at 17 feet off the property line sticks out further than the second floor addition, which we're now limited to 25 foot back. So there's a differential right there. And right now there's an existing peak roof on that area, and we would like to take off that peak and lower it and put just a deck in that area. Obviously that counts for FAR if, as a deck, but if it were just a flat roof, it would not count for FAR. It's a kind of a tricky part to the way the code is written. And, I mean, I think it's better for, it's just one of those tricky things. And so I just wanted to point it out that we're not sticking a new deck past the existing structure. It is within the boundaries of the first floor structure. So we're not adding a massive, addition to that. We're just utilizing an area that's there already. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have regarding anything I didn't touch on. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, Board. Kelly Rosado with Land Use Ecological Services. We are working on the DEC application under Article 34 of the Coastal Erosion Hazard Area requirements. I just want to point out, as far as CEHA is concerned, that technically speaking, we are requesting a variance from DEC because raising the house and putting it on a new foundation is considered development under Article 34, requiring a variance. However, the proposed addition meets Article 34 requirements in that it's a non-major addition, less than 25% of the existing footprint. The second story addition is one that's not applicable under CEHA regulations because Article 34 focuses on footprint. So a second story addition over existing house footprint does not add to that, and therefore doesn't require a variance. And the decking is actually being reduced from existing, so that is also meets the requirements of CEHA. So the only reason that, again, that we're seeking a DEC variance is for raising the house to meet FEMA standards for flood and erosion control. The application is currently in review with DEC as of July 3rd, so we are waiting to hear back from them. And if anyone has questions, I am available. All right, thank you.
So before I conclude, I want to just, I read the opposition letters, so I know what the opposition is. I don't know if I have to wait to hear it. I've already heard it. I've read it. But my clients understand that people in the community think maybe this house is too large or are not fans of the FAR variance at 46.25. My clients are willing to reduce the size of the house, but they would need to, have their architect redesign. What I'm asking the board, if it can give me that information, and I don't know if you can, is maybe some guidance as to what an acceptable FAR would be so that the architect could take a stab at trying to comply with the FAR. I mean, again, I know that this board there were two that were granted at 40.8. There were others at 50, and you know how I feel about precedent. I'm going to acknowledge that they're not precedent necessarily because they are different. The facts were different. They're just numbers to me, but the ones that are, I think, most similar are the 40.8. And so I would ask the board to maybe consider that.
I think acknowledgement that it's big is our thought process. I think what's problematic is that getting close to max have are also being raised. Very, very large structure. I don't know, and I don't have facts in front of me.
Yeah.
But the goal was.
Yeah.
That's I think you understand that. That's why.
Yeah.
Guidance from us.
Yeah, and I, okay, yes.
We're guided by what we read, and if I want to do that.
Understood.
We're guided by.
Like I said, I have those two decisions at 40.8. I don't know exactly what the distance is from the from the residence here. Well, I would just want to sum up on the factors if I could. So if there's not going to be any direction, I would just introduce these two. Okay, that's fine. Fair. Let me just introduce. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Are those
I don't know. One is at 48 Central Walk, so they're both in Fair Harbor. It's very close by. Again, I don't know if it's 500 feet. And the other one is located at 92 Broadway, again, also south of Central Walk. And this property is south of Central Walk. So we're in the ballpark. So that's why I thought these might be more relevant. Again, I'm not pushing the 53s. They're just numbers to me.
And were those?
The Beldie Dempsey says permission to erect a two-story dwelling. So that looks like it's a new home. From what I can tell. Yeah, it's hard to tell, but usually it says to elevate. And this other one is permission to leave deck, leave shower stall, leave decking. So this one might have been because it's leaving the decking. I don't know why they would come to the board if they weren't making a change. So, yes.
Using your phrase, numbers, are the 40.8s, are those driven by decking? Because your hose doesn't look like it has a lot of deck, but it has a lot of surface of the house. Where I don't know if 8 will have driven by decking.
Yeah. Mr. Wexler, I don't, and again, I'll let Nick address that. I don't think the house footprint is actually much larger, if larger at all. I know there's an addition to it. It's going up, but within the height restrictions, there is a lot of decking, and both of these involved houses and decking. So that's why I thought that these were perhaps the most relevant. So if I can just introduce those. Thank you.
Why don't we look at planning?
So then if I can just, and again, any feedback that you could give us, I mean, we would try to work with the community. I mean, you know, they want to improve what is essentially was built as like a beach bungalow into a modern home, you know, modern beach house, and just like many other people have done. And, you know, in order to do that, they have to make it larger. One thing I just would correct, I didn't say that the house was large, but the FAR is large. That's that, you know, because I don't think the house is large itself. It's the FAR with the decks and the house that put it into a category that seems to be beyond what the other relevant precedents had granted. So if I could just quickly go through the standards just quickly. So as the board knows the test, I don't need to go through that. You know, here there's the benefit versus burden. Here there's an obvious benefit to the Remmer Longs because it allows them to improve and enlarge their dwelling that was constructed more than 66 years ago in the same way that many other property owners in Fair Harbor and on Fire Island have done. This house was originally constructed, as I said, as somewhat like of a beach bungalow. It's a beautiful house, but it's a very small house, very modest. And like many other properties, needs to be enlarged and upgraded to meet the needs of its owners in the same way that many others in the area have done. Since the improved residents will generally be within the footprint of the current improvements, we'll have an FAR that is within the magnitude of FAR grants, and maybe it slides down a little bit to within the grants that the board has made at 40.8. The improvements will not have any detrimental effect on the neighborhood and community. I would argue that by improving a 66-year-old home and converting it to a modern beach house, you actually is beneficial to the neighborhood. With the exception of the FAR variance that was requested in the application, none of the relief is qualitatively substantial. So I'm really talking about the decks because the improvements will be located within the setbacks that were previously established by this board in 1958. And again, with the exception of a portion of the north ramp, none of the improvements will encroach into the front side and rear yards any further than they do today. In fact, as was stated, the footprint will be smaller than the footprint today. Due to the size of the lot and the existing improvements, there is no feasible way to elevate, repost, and upgrade the residence to become a modern beach house without asking for this relief. And that's why we're before you. There will not be an adverse impact on the physical and environmental conditions because this lot is already fully developed, fully improved. There's already a single-family residence there and decks that comply with the prior relief that was granted. And those decks cover a large portion of the lot. And then finally, I'm before you conceding that the request for the requested variances is self-created because the applicants are charged with knowledge of what the code requires when they purchase the property. But as the board knows, the finding of self-created hardship is not one of the dispositive factors. That concludes my presentation. I would like the opportunity to rebut any statements needed as needed. Thank you.
Yes. So to start with, I would disagree that the house is hospital and specific word that, but to be clear on that, the existing house itself over here is 989 square feet per floor, including the outdoor area currently is divided up 46%. The proposed brings that 989 to a 1,199 per floor and an 845.
Yeah, we're having problems. I'm sorry. Thanks.
So the structure itself is more than doubling in size, about a 1,000 to 1,100 square feet increase in the amount of house. They were wise to make sure that the decking was not being included in the gross floor area, which is why it can be shown there that although the FAR is theoretically only going from 46 to about 46, again, the actual house itself is more than doubling. Effectively zero. The second story balcony is the only thing counting now because they've otherwise conformed with being below 6 feet off of grade so that the first floor decking no longer counts. And they may have removed some of it as well, I believe they said. As far as the precedent cited, one of those, the 40.8, I believe that was for 92 Broadway. The decision on that, 5.3% of that was area under the eaves of the roof. And it was expressed in that decision that FAR was only granted due to the fact and that no such FAR would be granted except for taking into consideration that about 5.3% of that FAR was ground underneath the eaves. The other decision was granted citing that decision. I believe that's probably was not really a good way to be going around doing that, as it was not similar circumstances, but planning rep at the time had cited that and the board decided to give that based on that. I would say that the situation is different. I don't believe that's really applicable here. They are, well, not only asking for more, but the FAR is almost entirely in structure as opposed to a ground area underneath a roof over or an eave in that case. And it was only applicable there because it was jutting out 2.5 feet projection as opposed to 2. If they had just reduced the eaves a bit, it actually wouldn't have counted at all. So furthermore, this area is over 5%, yes.
5.2 or 5.3?
I can get a specific number. 5.2% ground area under the eaves as part of the decision.
That row.
To be clear, it was actually broken down much more. It was 30.8% dwelling, 3.1% shed with plumbing, 1.7% second floor decking, and 5.2% ground area under the eaves.
Out eave.
Approximately like 35.
No, we granted it. Remember that.
Yeah, your name is there.
Yeah.
2020, 2012, and then the subsequent one was in 2016 that seemed to have referenced it and granted. Based on that, again, I don't necessarily agree with what planning had said at that time, but it's what it is. But yeah, I don't believe those are precedent for this case. I think the circumstances are too different. What was I going with that? Oh, furthermore, this is AAA-B zoning. A lot of the area around it is BAA zoning. These are very similar zones. AAA-B is an overlay district, so I don't think it's unreasonable to be looking at BAA. But the reason we have that overlay is because coastal erosion hazard area, this is considered a sensitive area. We want to prevent overdevelopment of an area like this, more so than the rest of Fire Island. As for that,
Why more so than the rest of Fire
it's right near the Atlantic Ocean on the south side there in the Dune District. So any kind of storm coming through here, insurance rates, overdevelopment will affect the ability, and honestly, probably Kelly Risotto can speak more to that than I can, to be honest with you, but it's the kind of area that you want to keep in a natural state with the dunes in order to prevent damage coming from further inland towards Fire Island, replenishing the dunes over time again and again and again. So in the AAA-B district, the best that I could find that I thought was at least somewhat relevant was a grant of 37.5%. I'm not going to say that's necessarily what the board should hold to, but it was granted in 2016. They had asked for more, 40%. They were granted not to exceed 37.5. In that decision, they actually considered the decision for the parcel directly south of this one. That was a controversial one in 2006 that was ultimately denied and then went through a long legal process. That one was granted not to exceed 37.5. It was somewhat similar circumstances, although I don't believe it was being raised at the time. But FIR was granted at that. And it was not including decking or anything like that. It was post-code change. And that's one example. Most of the other FAR grants, you can find a lot of numbers that look good for them in the 40s and 50s. Upon further investigation, either they were before the code change and were actuality somewhere close to conforming, if not completely conforming, post-code change, or the circumstances were just so radically different that I don't really feel like they're relevant.
I think his opinion on what the top FAR should be.
37.5.
Is that what it is? That's what I'm asking.
37.5 is what the board has granted in the Dune District post-code change one time. I'm not going to say that's necessarily what should be granted in this case, but I think that would be the absolute height of what should be granted.
What is more? That 37.5.
The 37.5 is within 500 feet, although on a different walk. I believe it's on Elm Walk, not Oak Walk.
Is there anything close to 37.5 granted?
Is that a one-off? Similarity.
To me, it looks like a one-off.
What's next that you see? You see something that's out there? I know there isn't a lot.
I wrong in the other one that we granted, the Ryan site. We denied 41.8.
Yes, that one was denied 41.8, granted 40.8, as planning had indicated that was the highest grant in the area.
Right.
Again, from what I can tell, the highest grant in the area was that other 192 Broadway referenced that had all the stipulations about ground under the eaves.
Right. But also 40.8 is not similar to this application.
I mean, you can make a lot of arguments one way or the other whether something is similar or not, but I don't believe it was like an identical scenario, certainly no. And I don't think it was in the Dune area similar to this was either.
That also the other
Yeah.
driven by ease.
So I don't personally think that the 40.8 is accurate to this application.
Are you saying it's 5% that leaves us in the 36?
If anything, it should be closer to conforming. It's an area of higher environmental sensitivity. Now, the DEC may end up giving their permit or not. I know they're in the process of that.
I don't think that should necessarily drive the decision of the zoning board, whether they do or do not. But it is the opinion of the department that the overlay district was originally created to try and regulate this place more strictly than the rest of Fire Island. Even if the circumstances and all the variances will end up being or not the variances, the requirements will end up being very similar in terms of setbacks and FAR, because it is an overlay. So it does base itself originally on BAA.
What's planning's opinion on the rest of the application outside the FAO?
As I said, a lot of that is existing, being brought up because of the raise and the second story addition, although I believe Mr. Petchek said that the second story addition itself actually is conforming. And so most of those setbacks are being brought up just due to the elevation of the house.
Biggest problem with, from planning's perspective, is the FAO.
Yes.
All right, folks, one at a time, please. We heard this application. Please don't repeat. If you hear somebody else saying something, your name and address.
Good evening. My name is John Ernenwine. My address in Fire Island is directly north of the subject property at 107 Oak Walk. My wife may be speaking to tonight. I'm smart enough to know that I won't be stopping that from happening, but I'll try and be brief. So a couple of things I do want to echo, which the board has actually properly highlighted on its own already, which is which is quite instructive. First, I want to just make sure that we as a group are thinking mass of house and not get caught up in footprint. I heard the word footprint used a couple of times tonight. In Fire Island, decks are our front lawns. I don't count my front lawn as my house when I'm out on Long Island. And on Fire Island, decks that are outdoor, that are exposed, they don't indicate presence and mass, and bulk is a word I heard tonight, anywhere near what four walls and a roof does, and the actual mass of a house. So I do want to actually agree and highlight that what we have here is a footprint that is mostly, or very much deck, being covered with very much house. Bulk is replacing, okay. And so the second thing I'd like to highlight is, we of course, just like every other member of the town, we got our notice about 6 days ago, so we rallied as best we could, and we'll do the best we can. But I do believe there's 6 properties adjacent to this particular property in question. There's a double on the west side, there's a double across the walk on the east side, and then a single myself to the north and a single to the south. One to the south you actually discussed was the home of a Mr. Wetherill, who actually came before the board and was denied. Mr. Wetherill is ill, but he did submit a letter in opposition, which I don't believe the board has, and I'd like to make a copy available to the board.
Okay.
If it has been received, then, okay.
The officer will.
I have a copy for the board and also for.
Okay.
Steve. So I am one of the properties, and it looks like I'm the lucky one who gets the most impact from the setback on the north. And what we have here, again, echoing my sentiment about what is there, just to add a little color here, you can't see it from the bird's eye view, but the house in question, Oak Walk slopes up to a dune, so it's towards the high side as you get close to the ocean. So looking to my house to the north, I'm about 3 feet roughly lower on level than the house is currently. And so what we know is that the house is going to be reposted, raised, and I have to tell you, I know that it's described as a renovation and addition, but it's going to be completely reposted, and it's going to double its square footage. So I don't know how that's a renovation and addition. It looks like a brand new house to me, and particularly since the second story of about another 1,000 square feet is equal to 2 of the homes across the street in total square feet. So it's a substantial house, but called a renovation and addition. So it looks to me like about a 22 foot, give or take. I looked at the plans by 20 foot high. I'm counting 2 stories. addition will come out from the gray house, 111 Oak, towards my house to within 5 feet, counting the ramp, which is going to be elevated. So to me, looking upwards, as I look from my side deck, looking upwards, I've got a, what it resembles, I guess, about a 20-foot by 22-foot box with a sloping ramp attached to the outside of it. Yeah, I'm the yellow one on the left with the chimney.
Right.
Yeah. Interestingly, the same lot size as the house in question. So you have your comp right next door. Oh, sorry, I've got the Mr. Weatherall's letter here. Yes, Mr. Weatherall is directly south. Okay, so.
His house would be to the north.
Yep, so walking up the walk, and also you get a sense of the neighborhood, which is good. So obviously Fair Harbor's a bungalow neighborhood, and on the side of the house, with the house being where it is and also being raised, the southern sun, and that's where the open part of my deck is. Obviously, I have what I don't even know how to describe it, just a big box looking down on me now, and.
Height's not the issue. The size of it may be, but height's not the issue.
And I actually respect the fact that homes in Fair Harbor, when they're renovated, the FEMA does ask it to be raised. One thing that was actually mentioned was the zone it's in is AAA-B, and there was actually, and it was properly, again, very well highlighted by the members of the board tonight. It's called out in the code of the town of Islip that AAA-B, specifically that zone, which is actually beyond my zone, has been called out to be restricted from overdevelopment because they represent, basically the aesthetic and character of Fireline needed to be preserved. I don't want to paraphrase too much, but it's in the code. AAA-B is written in the town code to be preserved from development. So a very important point. So obviously I have the physical aspects of a large raised home next to me with a large sidewall next to me with its attendant ramp, now starting 5 feet off my line. But I also obviously, so I have the, obviously the impact on my quality of life, but also the town itself. And there's obviously a nice cohort of people here that I'll let them speak for themselves. I hate to use the term McMansion and Fire Island because we always think of ourselves as special out there. It's a bungalow community. It's a style of life. It ain't the Hamptons. But the thing, the pejorative term comes from the fact that it doesn't sit with the neighborhood. It's large, and maybe stylistic people, people may disagree with it. Stylistically, I'm not going to get into the style of it. Let's just talk mass. This is big, bold, and tall. And on a high dune in Fair Harbor, it will have quite an impact and quite a presence. So that.
Laura, understand there's a lot of houses. The applicant said it's large. Discuss it, but no. So we're all aware. You may hear this to get it. It's very, very large.
Right.
And thank you. And so I think the aesthetic matters. I'll leave it at that. And I think that the code has worked for years. And I think my wife's going to say something about this, but I actually live next door to the property on the identical size lot. And then maybe you'll hear a little bit more about, why the code works. So it is my position right now as a neighbor, and I will say this, there's 6 contingent neighbors. I believe we have 4 of the 6 here, either represented in letter form or in person, so you can hear from them too. So thank you very much.
Well, I'd like to indicate that this is the first time maybe here that husband and wife are in agreement 100% of this occasion,
They think the house is too big.
among other things. My name is Nancy Ernenwine. John and I own the home at 107 Oak, the adjacent property to the north. I prepared something, but I promise to go quick. Fair Harbor has always been known for its modest, charming homes, designed in the blend of the surrounding landscape, the dunes, the beach, the trees, and the other houses. However, this proposed construction threatens to disrupt this balance. Fair Harbor has a rich history of simplicity. And unlike the more developed areas in Fire Island, Fair Harbor has maintained a low-key, relaxed vibe, and the small size of our homes reflects this ethos. The proposed structure with its significant height and square footage stands in contrast to this tradition. One of the critical guidelines, as we've talked about tonight, is the FAR. This Town of Islip code is important, it's reasonable, and it's achievable. And I know that because John and I also own a 3-lot home to the north of this property. And we have added a second-story addition, and we have stayed under the 30% FAR with the same exact size property. It's achievable. It's alarming that this structure at 111 seeks a FAR of 46.25%. The height of this proposed structure is another concern. This house towers over the modest homes surrounding it, obstructing views. It'll cast shadows and will diminish the sunlight in our yards and our gardens. I understand that, but if you saw the house itself and the way it comes down, it actually doesn't even need.
All right, so there's nothing we can do.
Okay, no problem. I understand. Well, it is 2.5 stories tall, and its height and the placement 10 feet off my road, off Oak Walk, will affect our view completely from the south side of our home. It'll significantly change and impact the way we live our lives and enjoy our home. My husband mentioned the ramp and the setback, but I'd also like you to know that in between where that 5 feet is, there are 9 mature trees that would have to be taken down. Those trees survived Hurricane Sandy. And because of the slope of our block that it's, well, okay, but I'd like to make the point that some of the trees are on my property, and that being 5 feet off my property would affect the roots of our trees. Sorry, just want to say it. All right. And aside from these trees, I know they're theirs now, but they do provide a natural barrier for sound and privacy. And talking about privacy, the way the house is built out toward 10 feet now, their first floor and second floor will look directly down into our sliding glass doors. So again, it affects our privacy and the way we like to live our life and enjoy our home. I'm not going to mention property value, but you can draw your own conclusions with that. Beyond the visual and spatial concerns, there's the obvious environmental concerns. I know you've seen the Finn's letter. I also talked to the DEC yesterday. I spoke to an analyst, although that analyst was not assigned to this case. They told me that the permit was requested on June 10th, that it's currently in progress, and that it was this person's feeling I spoke to on the phone that there would be restrictions. I know that doesn't affect the town of Islip, but it was just something to mention. And finally, like many others here tonight, I'm concerned about the building's impact on the future of Fair Harbor if this building is approved. Will everyone be able to play fast and loose with the Islip Building Code? Will these be the new rules for Fair Harbor? Is everyone and anyone allowed to have a 46.2% FAR? I am not against anyone improving their home. However, it's crucial to respect the character and the scale of the neighborhood. And it's also important to respect your neighbors. I ask this board to ensure any changes made enhance rather than distract from our beautiful community. And I ask this Board of Appeals to enforce the Town of Islip Building Code and reject this application.
Anyone else like to be heard?
submitted some stuff in writing. I don't know whether Joanne distributed to the board yet. It's a letter. I have copies. Good, okay. And you should already have received some comments by Judy Corcoran, the head of the Fire Island. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Jerome Fader. I have a house at 116 Oak Walk. It's across the street from the subject parcel. I've owned that house for something like 40 years. I've had a lot of experience with the EAA district or the AAAB district dealing with Iceland. I'm going to talk about some of that experience. I'm the erosion district commissioner for the village of Fair Harbor. I've been the erosion district commissioner for 10 years, and my wife, erosion district commissioner for 10 years prior to that. So I'll get right into the some of the maybe just to rebut one of the this hasn't been talked about as being a beach house. And if you look, I mean, if you look at the surrounding areas, they're basically houses with a lot of decks. And people in Fair Harbor live on their decks. If they decks are essentially part of the neighborhood and part of life out there. And this being described as a beach house with no deck, or essentially very little deck, is ridiculous. Question whether there's an intent to go back later and try to add that. So let me now get into more of the. I'm commenting on application 44A-24. You're aware this parcel lies in Seha, and presumably we'll see what the DEC does with that. My request is that you that any action you take with the goal of minimizing additional development with Seha, and I guess my concern is that enforcement in the past of the AAAB district has been very strict, at least in my experience, and I'll tell you about some of my experiences shortly. I've been forced to maintain in my house. I've been forced to be maintained strictly within FAR limits, and I was never granted even a square foot of accommodation in FAR. Oh yeah, I had going back to the early 90s. I had a $15,000 legal bill with my attorney negotiating with the town, basically to.
I can help a little bit. I can help a little bit. Oh, okay. I can help a little bit. That was Town Board's authority, right? It was a special permit at that time in the AAAB district.
Yes.
So you needed a Town Board special permit at that time to lift the hammer in the AAAB. That special permit was subsequent to the mid-90s, sometime thereafter, removed from the town code. And AAAB, from that point forward, was treated just like BAA in terms of area variances had to come before the Zoning Board of Appeals rather than the Town Board for a special permit.
Okay. I mean,
I just wanted to satisfy myself that this board didn't deny. It was the town board and something.
Okay. I didn't draw a strong distinction. I know my experience as a homeowner seeking to preserve my house. I mean, my house was undermined in the storm of the early 90s. There was some storms, and maybe let me not get too far out of sequence. So one request, basically, the town took, at least in my experience, took very seriously the AAAB district, and I had a $16,000 legal bill in discussions with the town. What?
You grew $1,000.
I'm sorry, I may have misspoken. I'm not. Okay, yeah, okay. The property in question was recently purchased from the family of the previous owner. The previous family used the property without substantial alterations, something like 40 years. Okay. The property was known and accepted. The limitations were known and accepted by the new buyer prior to purchase. There's no question of hardship warranting a variance here. I guess in terms of motivation behind the Dune District, the state seeks to minimize coastal erosion by promoting natural protective features, dunes, bluffs, and beaches. I mean, that would probably include trees, which had come up just a short while ago, and one of my neighbors mentioned destruction of trees. The parcel is located at the base of a protective dune. The would basically hurt the protective dune to the south. Additional elevation of structures would harm the feature. The elevation would shade the surrounding area, impeding vegetation, and the vegetation protects Fire Island. Basically, it protects against wind, water, and sand-induced erosion. The proposed house is huge relative to lot size. You said you get that. And I won't go into the details. It would dwarf the nearby houses and harm the area aesthetics. My house is one of the larger in the area, but my enclosed floor area is still small. My house is on an 8-lot parcel, 12,800 square feet. But this house being proposed, the interior space is larger than my house. My house FAR is under 25%. I was required by ISIP, or perhaps the board, to keep it that way. My enclosed floor area is under 15%, which is far less than the proposed application. My house was damaged following the storms of '93. When I sought to move my house to the north, or property I had purchased for safety, ISIP or zoning, or maybe the board, refused and required that I first remove and destroy a house on the lot to the north, which I did. And in that process, I was not granted any relief to the 25%, to the 30% FAR. So therefore, in the interest of preservation of the nature and character of the sensitive oceanfront dune area of Fire Island, please reject the subject application or limit it to what is absolutely necessary for the new owners to use the property. Thank you.
My name is Russell McAllister. I own the house at 102 Oak Walk in Fair Harbor. I'm also a resident of ISIP here in Maple Street. My biggest problem with this alteration is how it's going to affect the view down the street. It is going to be furthest house out from Central Walk going south. So now when we look down Central Walk, all you're going to see is this house because of the relaxation, possible relaxation of the setback from Oak Walk. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Todd Johnston. I'm the son-in-law for Barry Weatherall, who has already been mentioned by John as having just come out of the hospital and provided his letter, which you now have in front of you. I think the only thing to add really is that my father-in-law requested a variance from where his house is now at 115 Oak to be able to go to 31% FAR in 2007. And that was denied, even though it was staying within its own current setbacks. So this board, the Board of Appeals, has denied a similar increase to the FAR for this district. We sit directly south of 111. Thank you.
Hi, good day. So my name is Anton Schubert. I own the home that was referenced earlier by the gentleman on 79 Oak Walk. And I had been before the committee once before in making an extension, on the property. And just to John's point, I just wanted to reiterate that the footprint of the house was required to remain exactly the same. When we put in the original proposal, we got back a revision, no expansion on deck space, front or back of the house. And so we, although are one of the larger houses on the block, we are certainly within the character of the neighborhood.
Good evening. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Lee Sneed. I represent Mr. Fader and a number of the residents of the area. And the reason I'm coming up is that I was the attorney who handled a number of the litigations that have been discussed here. And I just want to point out that in the AAAB district, as you look around this area, there are very few houses that exceed 30%. To the immediate east, to the immediate west of the applicant's house is Mr. Fader. He complies, even though his lot is larger, he complies with the 30%, and he has a second story. To the north, which is Mr. Ernenwine, Mr. and Mrs. Ernenwine, although they are in the BAA and have a two-story house, they also comply with the FAR of 30%. With regard to the specific Mr. Weatherall's house, Mr. Weatherall asked for modest relief and was denied. He then had to go through several litigations to try, one of which we were involved in, to stop. And he ultimately agreed to keep his house at 30% because that was what was going on in the neighborhood. Finally, with regard to this specific house, it was formerly owned by the Resnicks. The Resnicks were part of the litigation to keep Mr. Weatherall from having a larger house, even though it was modest. The entire ethos of this area is small houses, shielded by trees, not gigantic visibility. And in that light, we think it should be denied. I would suggest that the precedents that were raised to you are not significantly similar to this project. They are further north and in the BAA, in areas where those kinds of reliefs are granted. And if you look within the AAB district, you'll find that it's much more modest. So with that, you've heard pretty much everything that you need to hear. I would note that the building is being built out, built up, and raised, and is really not a renovation. It's a total redo. I mean, the fact that they're going to put a second floor on an existing. Okay, I understand it's not a term of art here with your board, but if someone was coming to you and saying, I'm knocking down the house completely and I'm going to build, that's really how you should be looking at it. It's not, we're building out something exactly where it is, but we're raising it also. This is an absolute it's a reconstruction of the house, of a house, a new house. That's fine, Your Honor. So with that, I'll leave it for you. Yes. Thank you.
Hello, how's everybody tonight? Mike Coyle, I live at 75 Oak Walk. I just want to remind the chairman of something touched upon in one of the other cases. When is enough enough? Keep on pushing the envelope and you're affecting quality of life. And that's right, well, the vice chairman. And that's what it basically comes down to. You're okay. Well, the gentleman here, Mr. Wexler, it comes down to, my point is, it comes down to the quality of life. Surrounding neighbors, quality of life. Thank you.
Jean Marie Allen, I'm at 78 Oak Walk. I'm also a resident of town of Islip and Islip Terrace. I just want to tell you that we have been there for over, my kids, 40 years. And to change what they're looking to do does not fit into the area. I want to thank you for taking the time and hoping that this does not go through for all of us. And I want to thank you, all my neighbors who have come out to help.
Make it short. Thank you.
I'm Paul Burbank. I go as Mike at Fire Island. I've been over there 75 plus years. I have the house backing up to the house that we're talking about. It is a little bungalow. It isn't only 3 feet off the ground and only 2 bedrooms, where I think this house is going to be a monster on the back of me. I appreciate all your time. Fire Island's been a great place. We've had another place in Lonelyville. I've been with the fire department over there for 65 years, and I appreciate you guys taking your time and going over this. You got all the measurements, so I'm not going to give it to you. Have a nice evening.
Anyone else would like to be heard?
So my name is Dennis Powers. I'm here tonight speaking on behalf of my wife, Lori. Express our concerns about the proposed construction. Because I didn't bring a team of lawyers and consultants tonight, so you got to listen to me. Oh, I'm sorry, you can't hear me? Okay, I'll speak into the mic, sorry. So my wife, 106 Oak Walk, across the street, directly in line with 111. Our house is a small 700 plus square foot, 2-bedroom bungalow. It's not large. My wife constantly reminds me of that. But we've been there for 2 years. We've been 27-year residents of Sayville, another great town of Islip community. We've been in Fair Harbor for 2 years. It's an amazing place. We feel blessed. And, you know, people have talked about the character, the charm, so I'm not going to go into that, but it really is a wonderful place. You know, you walk through, if you've never been there, you know, you really are struck by the houses, the foliage, the sunsets. I mean, everything is just amazing. And, you know, as somebody pointed out, it's a bungalow community. There are absolutely houses that have been renovated and expanded, but from what I've seen, they've all been done tastefully, and they've all maintained the integrity and the character of the community. So I think what's being proposed at 111, while it's a beautiful design, I'm an engineer, I work with architects all the time, I appreciate that. But in terms of proportion, it just does not fit into the rest of the residences and properties on Oak Walk. Listen, at the end of the day, there are plenty of other properties, both in Fair Harbor and in other Fire Island communities where this house of this size and structure would fit in well and maintain the integrity. But I don't believe Oak Walk is the right place for it. So we appreciate your time and consideration, and hopefully you'll do what's best to protect the community and the character. Thank you.
Anyone else would like to be heard in this application? Oops.
Hi, Adam Carnesi, the newest owner on Oak Walk. We're at 108, directly across the street. Just want to echo everything everybody else said. I know you said not to repeat, so I'm not going to. But we live in, our house is about 800 square feet, and just the proposed size of the house is what my biggest concern. So thank you very much.
My name is Brian Ernenwine. I'm the son of John and Nancy Ernenwine. I did not intend to speak tonight, but when I saw that I was the only person under 40 years old that would come up to the mic, I just thought that I should share a few words. I hope to work hard enough to own my own house in Fair Harbor one day, and I hope that the character maintains. More importantly, I really do believe that coming to Fire Island, seeing a picture of myself when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, walking down these blocks and remembering a house I rented before my parents owned one, seeing a house that my friends had rented, and knowing all the time, seeing these memories disappear just because somebody else finds their house a little too small. And unlike some other people that have renovated their homes, does not want to stay within the FAR, there's no reason why these variances should be granted. I hope that you deny them, and I thank you very much for your time.
be brief. Thank you. First, before I start, can I just hand up two things? Shot of the area showing the subject property and properties that are, there you go. It's pulled back a bit because that doesn't really do it justice. That's too focused. And here's another photo that shows the Fader house and the Remember Long property, house, I should say. You can see the relative size of the two parcels. I just want to address first what Nick had said. I appreciate, your view, Nick, and you're not agreeing with some of the precedent. But the precedent is the precedent. And to the extent, I guess you had said that you don't agree that the board should have granted one of the 40.8s, but it did. And it didn't make any distinction. And so that's a decision that's out there. The rationale is not terribly important unless it was stated, and it's not. So I think that is an important decision that I think the board should rely on. There was a statement about the coastal erosion hazard area. That there was a need for protection. This house is 3 lots off of the beach. It is within the residence the AAA-B zone. But because it's staying within the footprint of what's there today, whether it be decks, houses, or whatever, it doesn't create the potential for any greater erosion than what is there today. If this was being expanded and the footprint was being expanded, I would agree with that. Sube, again, I think there was even some thoughts about, does that one even apply? That's the 37.5. And, there was like, well, maybe that's not exactly the situation. I will submit, and I know this board knows this, you're not going to find 2 applications that are identical. You're just not. It's Fire Island. Every property is different. Every home is different. Every circumstance, every existing improvements are different. So you're not going to find the same situation. And I know when I was here just a couple of months ago, I tried to make a distinction and say that a property was unique, and the board made a decision that it didn't really matter that it was unique. It's just a number, and that number would apply and create a problem for the board. And I appreciate the board's concern, and that'll be decided at some point. But I feel like I come here sometimes and it has to be an exact situation. I come here other times it doesn't have to be exact. Yeah, and you do. You always do, Mr. Wexler. And then Sube, there was a statement that Sube was, I think somebody said was before the code change. I don't think Sube was before the code change. Sube was after the code change, I believe, unless I'm wrong about that, because that one was was what? It was well after. That's what I thought. So that's why I think that one. Yeah. Sube assets. Yeah, I think that was, so I just wanted to correct the record on that. I do think that one is also applicable, like the 40.8. And then I'm not going to address all of the comments, but I just like as a kind of a bigger picture thing, a high level. I'm not surprised that people who are located to the north that have 2-story houses whose view will be blocked. I'm not surprised that they're here opposing this. I would expect that. Between the FEMA standards and the ability for people to enlarge their homes in accordance with the code, people are going to lose the views. You don't have a right when you're 4 lots off of the property to a view in perpetuity. So that happens quite a bit, and again, I see it all the time, and it's not surprising. There was a statement that property values would be adversely impacted. I don't believe that's going to be the case. In fact, I think it's the opposite. Other persons talked about what the DEC person who is not assigned to this project said. So I think that's hearsay. Just would ask the board to consider that. And then, kind of where I was going before, and you told me to wait, Mr. Wexler, and, and again, it comes up time and time again. I think people think that the board, as a zoning board, has their job is to enforce the code. It's the exact opposite. And I know you all know this. The building department enforces the code. The zoning board, as an appellate body, looks at the merits of each application, each piece of property, the circumstances in the area, and makes a decision, applying the balancing test and the 5 factors to decide whether a variance is warranted. It's not an enforcement situation. And I know you know that. I'm saying that for the benefit of the people who are opposing based on that. Somebody said that I said there would be no decks. There were plenty of decks on this house. So I just wanted that's not the case. Mr. Fader, can I send you the picture? He's complaining about the house. He's got the largest house. He's right across the street. I understand he has a large lot, but from a purely coastal erosion standpoint, he creates the potential for the greatest amount of erosion. Yet, he's opposing this on that ground. And then finally, there was a statement that the structure, the house, would be protruding forward and impact the views, if I get this right, looking south when you're on Oak Walk. This house is not extending any further to the west, so it will not have any impact on the views from the walk. So, so there were a lot of things that were said, and I'm going to stop right there because I know it's getting late. The board has heard a lot. But like I said, we appreciate, your consideration of the request with the understanding that my client is willing to make some modifications to hopefully address some of the concerns. But staying at 30% that's not one of them. But somewhere in the middle there, if maybe we can reach an agreement, we would be happy to take a look at that. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
All right, motion to reserve. Second. All in favor? Aye. Decision's been reserved. Anybody here?
Oh, Nick, we are very sorry. You didn't hear me.
Wait, we didn't do this.
We are very sorry, Nick Fluger. This poor guy. It's good to start with sympathy from the board, Nick. So here you go. Ready? Application number 449-24, HC Real Estate Holdings LLC, 60 West Holdings LLC. Permission to install mezzanine resulting in floor area ratio of 161.89% instead of permitted 60%. Business District, south side of West Main Street, 31.4 feet west of South Park Avenue, Bay Shore.
Good evening. My name is Nicholas Fluger, Bullard Fluger Architects, 85 East Main Street, Bay Shore, New York, 11706. I'm the architect on the project. I'm here on behalf of the building owner as well as the owner of Kalula's Restaurant. The existing building is a 2-story masonry building. Currently, the first floor is vacant and the second floor has 5 residential apartments. We are proposing to build out the first floor space for Kalula's Restaurant. They've outgrown their current location on 4th Avenue in downtown Bay Shore, and they are looking to relocate to the subject premises. Part of this proposal is to build a mezzanine level above the new commercial kitchen, which would be on the first floor level in the rear of the building. This mezzanine level would be underneath the existing second floor, but above or in between the new kitchen on the first floor and that second floor. The space that's proposed is 444 square feet. Current FAR, the building is 149%. This additional space would bring our FAR to 161.89%. Since this is a mezzanine level stacking on top of the new kitchen, this would not affect the footprint. There's no expansion of the footprint, and footprint would remain unchanged. And in closing, we think this proposal would not have a negative effect on the area. Take any questions that the board may have.
So the restaurant traveled to parcels there, correct? Same building?
Correct. So the zoning department had a little trouble with that, and they didn't know how to handle it. We didn't know how to handle it. When we first submitted. There is. So the zoning department basically said that that is what we should be doing, is consolidating the two properties, and we're in the process of doing that with the building owners. The building owners own both properties, obviously.
I guess it was just a point of confusion for me that if it's proposed to be consolidated, the FAR in actuality lower. Less. I don't know why you've done it.
I think the reason was mainly because no one knew exactly how to handle it. Because I should mention, originally the building owners did not want to consolidate the two properties, even though we said that probably will be where we land with the application. But of course, everyone wanted to move the application forward, so we went ahead and submitted what we had. And then the zoning department, made some comments. I relayed that back to the building owners, and they basically, said, okay, if we need to consolidate, we will. But since we were, already had the denial, and we wanted to keep things moving with the application, so here we are.
Do you know for certain that if they consolidated it would be enough?
I calculated based on the numbers they gave, it would be 137.5. Which is not abnormal.
It's almost like we should just grant that number.
Kind of what I was getting
And
at.
kind of force the consolidation. Sounds like you want to be forced.
It either way is, I suppose, is fine, because they're going to need to consolidate anyway. So if that works for the board, that works for us.
Right. Follow me?
To be said, is there anyone else that would like to be heard in this application?
Okay.
Jay? Any questions from the board?
No.
Planning anything else? Okay. Take a motion?
Oh.
I'll make a motion, we approve the application.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, we just threw an idea out. Did you catch it? No.
I have a motion pending.
This was very bad of me to schedule this after the last.
Yes, it's all good. We're starting to fall asleep
So-
over
Guys,
there.
somebody want to second this? And we-
No, hold on.
So what we're discussing is, if you don't mind me paraphrasing. Yes. So we need everybody's attention.
Yeah, guys. If we.
So just really quick. So the application before you, unfortunately, only included one of the two lots that the property owner owns.
The FAR is.
The FAR,
Higher than what is.
correct, because they haven't yet merged the properties. They are going to merge the properties, probably, and they will do so faster if we require them to merge the properties, and thereby reduce the FAR to 137.5% instead of the 161 that's requested pre-merger. The assessor's form is, you submit it with 2 deeds and 2 paid tax bills. Well, they
Well, we
really,
can
really,
approve-
really wanted the hearing.
We can approve it 137.5. They have to do it.
We do have an attorney that's working on the consolidation. We typically don't do that in my office, but they do have an attorney that's doing
Would
it.
expedite that.
I would say so, yes.
It would require it.
Who's the attorney?
I think they got Steve Bertolino to do this. Don't quote me on that. I know he did another project for him, but I'm pretty sure he was also doing it.
We can help Steve with the merger.
So it's not hard to do. Doing it, it's all there, right?
I might be helping you.
You got it. Isn't a hardest part going out to the county and getting the tax lot done? The town sets that. Okay.
137. That was the exact.
Why don't we go 137.5?
140.
140.
137.
Well, you were tight. It's 140.
I'll take the motion.
I make a motion, we approve we deny the application at, what is it cited at? 161.89, but approve it at 140%.
Okay. Thank you very much.
That's good, right?
That works for us. Thank you very much. Good night.
Okay, everybody, don't stand up. We have
I
12.
got Sally Jesse Raphael going on over here. They're not even paying any attention.
Can I steal one of these?
Oh, yes. Oh, sorry. Yes, yeah, I did it again. Thank you, Don. Thank you, Don. Good secretary, Don. Good night. We have 12 accessory apartments to renew and 4 two-family family use onlys for a period of 3 years. Is there a motion?
Motion? Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
And Bill. And then we have 2 formerly reserved decisions to read into the record. Application number 245-24, Thomas and Kathleen Orlando. In accordance with a proposed written decision dated July 23rd, 2024, the application is granted as to the rear yard setback of 24.9 feet for the dwelling and denied as to the remainder of the application. On motion of
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
application number 315-24, Albert Project LLC. In accordance with the proposed written decision dated July 23rd, 2024, the application is denied. On motion of
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you, Ken. That's a wrap.